experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is...
All right, it's Monday. Happy Monday. And how are you doing? Welcome to the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the 30th day of November 2020. So is this that day that you were saying, CT?
Mm-hmm.
This is the one.
This is the day.
This is the one. End of the month.
This is it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
When everything happens.
Oh, it's the day when everything happens.
Yes.
Are these good things?
All good things happen at the end of the month. Okay. And they happen for the next 5 days.
And then
Back to factory settings.
you just get there and that's it. 5 days of good things and then back to...
That's why we think and we look forward to it in such a relish because one, short-lived, and then you look forward to it again.
And you love it.
Most certainly.
Yep. Welcome to the show, everybody, and we're glad that you are able to join us. We hope you had a lovely weekend. And those that may not have had a lovely weekend, we wish you a good week ahead. See, Ndu, how was your weekend?
Fine, thank you. It was all right.
It was all right. Fine, thank you, and all right are not the
So
same.
I'm fine, thank you. That was the answer. You asked, how are you? And then you asked, how was the weekend? I said it was all right. So I'm asking you questions in succession.
Okay.
I follow instructions.
My question was very clear.
Oh, what was your question?
Ndu Oko, how was your weekend?
Oh, fine, thank
So
you.
if you want to add another question, it's okay. You can do that, but declare.
Okay.
The question actually should be,
Wow.
the people that you ask questions. In fact, the more appropriate question here would have been, how are you? And then how was your weekend?
Okay. I'm very sorry.
To which I would have answered,
Oh, wow.
I am fine. And the weekend, how was it? Very
was
well,
all right.
thank you. And the weekend was all right.
And I think when somebody's that inventive and they want to suggest, I think you should be in agreement and thank them. And then thank them for also responding to the question which they have set for themselves.
Yeah.
And then ask them to now respond to what you asked.
Now, can you answer my question?
Please. Yes.
My weekend was fine, thank you.
Good. CT, how was yours?
It was very good, thank you. Yes.
And how are you doing, Eric?
I'm doing very well.
Super duper.
What?
I just looked at the screen and I saw the picture of an owl. And my laptop screen, there's a snow owl. And I was marveling. Of all the creatures, of all the birds, the owl is a really strange bird in terms of how it looks. The face is almost flat. Big eyes. I mean, it has torch, okay? Small nose. And then it has this pudgy self. It looks very interesting, uniquely so.
True.
Is there any community in Kenya that has a positive vibe about the owl?
No, not that I know of. Everything
Africa.
about it is
You hear the owl.
negatively superstitious.
Truly. But even like in the US and stuff, around Halloween and stuff, it's the owls that come out to play. and
But
things like that.
do we have them in Africa?
Owls?
What? Owls.
Just ask. I've never seen them.
Yes.
Where are they?
They're all over.
I've never seen any.
You never seen one?
No, never.
Or heard one?
You may have heard one, but you don't know that it's
I may
an
have
owl.
heard,
Yeah.
but seen, no.
I've seen
Then
one.
you haven't heard people saying, oh my God, that's the owl. Someone is going to
I
die.
have, and they pointed in a direction. All I saw was darkness. So I haven't.
Exactly.
I actually haven't seen one.
I have.
No, I haven't.
Quite a sight
But-
to behold.
I know what I have seen. Snakes.
Well done, CT. You and half the population of the world.
Small.
I've seen the whole range.
Whole range.
Live, not picture, seen, as in snake.
Have you held one? Like, gone to those farms that do snakes?
I've been to those farms. I've seen the
and
snakes.
put one on your neck.
Let me just ask you this question, Eric. In the time that you've known me, have I shown signs of being somehow mentally deficient?
Loopy.
Is there something I've done that has... Because that
Giving
question
you the impression.
seems to imply that in the time that you've known me all along, well, you have had this perspective but haven't shared it, that I am clearly a few eggs short of a dozen. Take a snake and put it around my neck.
Yes.
Okay.
Feels quite nice, by the way.
Sorry, what? You've done this?
Yes, I have.
Oh, well done.
You know,
When you feel the muscle actually on your neck, the first thing that you feel is that, your adrenaline just kicks in and the fear that runs down your spine. And then you realize, okay, there's somebody holding it on one side and the other side. And you're fine. There are many people. But for a split second there.
And they've spoken to this snake, and this snake knows what it's supposed to do. Okay, these are snake whisperers. Okay, good. There are things I will not do, and I will announce and tell people that I will not do. So those who wish to put snakes around their necks,
Go ahead.
tie them around their waists, I guess
Go right ahead and do it.
this is what freedom is all about, isn't it? The right.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to the show, gentlemen and ladies. This today we're going to have a couple of discussions, a number of them on the political front. The BBI, too late to give views. That's what Raila is telling Muslims. The deputy president, tweeting and saying, there are some things, there are some gains that have been made post-bombers to this particular draft constitutional bill. And therefore, now we are seeing that there's a possibility of even moving closer and closer to a win-win. Now we are at that point of win-lose. We moved from lose-lose, whatever semantics that he's using. We'll have a discussion on that. Civil society organizations, of course, led by the people that we spoke to a couple of days ago that have gone even to court to try and ring-fence some sections of the Constitution against any amendment. This include the civil society leaders like Dr. Ndi, people like Jerotich Seii and others. We'll be having a conversation on this particular matter because they're out again. They're saying they will not rest until they stop this reggae called a BBI. So we'll have a conversation with Boniface Mwangi and Jerotich Seii today. And then we'll also have a conversation with somebody who's firmly, both feet, both legs, actually neck deep in Tanga, who now says there are some positive things to be seen in this particular BBI, Constitutional Amendment Bill. And this is the Elgeyo Marakwet woman representative. Wasingishu, actually, yes. Wasingishu woman representative, Gladys Boss Shollei. She'll be joining us as well, and we'll have that conversation on what exactly they see. Then we also know there are very many other things that have happened over the weekend. They're happening, and we'll be discussing them. But let's start with the coronavirus, where we are at in numbers in the country and all over the world.
So over the last 24 hours, as was reported yesterday, Kenya admitted 1,262 patients to hospital who had tested positive with COVID-19. 7 people have died, and the new caseload was 711 for yesterday. So the number of COVID-19 patients admitted to hospital around the country continues to rise, even as the government implements public health measures to curb transmission at the community level. So there was a report from the Ministry of Health that indicated that 1,262 people had been admitted yesterday. Now, this doesn't mean that 1,262 people had been reported to be positive yesterday. It just means that as they were now being brought to hospital is when those numbers were recorded, but they had been tested positive previously, right? 68 of them are undergoing specialized care at the intensive care unit, and 42 are on ventilatory support. And 73 of them are in the general wards. So according to the COVID-19 status update report by the ministry, 7,806 patients are under home-based care, and this is the home-based care program around the country. Looking at the cases that were found yesterday, the youngest was a 1-year-old baby, and the oldest was a 92-year-old adult. We'll be looking at other stories concerning COVID-19, one of them being that a woman gives birth to a baby with the coronavirus antibodies already.
What does that mean?
So the active virus had been found in samples of fluid around the baby in the womb or in the breast milk. So as they had either ingested milk when they were born, this was in Singapore. We'll look at details of that. Either they had ingested it in the breast milk of the mother, or it was within the amniotic fluid, which we know that this is what the baby boys in until birth.
So what does that signify? That it's possible to transmit it to mother to child transmission?
Yes. This is what it signifies.
In the womb, not
it's a big
at
deal.
birth.
In the womb. So the child was born with the antibodies.
What's the case with HIV, City? It's at birth. And that's why now you make...
It's in the blood.
It's in the blood.
It's in the blood because the virus is resident in the blood. So since the child's blood, when the child is in the womb, is the same as the mother's blood. Everything that the mother has, the child has. Okay. Now, what research determined with HIV was that with the passage of time, when the child now begins to build their own immune system, their own, not their mother's. Remember, they are no longer dependent on their mothers. It was possible for them to actually develop a system within their bodies that could combat. But to assist it, there was an ARV called Nevirapine. Nevirapine was administered to mothers who were expectant at certain specific intervals up until the time when they were delivering. And it did two things. One, it reduced the possibility of the infection of the mother to pass on the infection to the child. So what this meant was that mothers had some sort of comforting knowledge that it was possible for them, even if they were HIV positive, to give birth to children who were HIV negative.
HIV negative.
Yes. So Nevirapine was able to suppress the virus to the point where it would not be transmitted. Now, this is a virus. So if it is possible for it to be done with HIV, I think the thinking is that it is very possible because if you talk about COVID, it's also a virus. Now, remember, part of the reason why the vaccines that we currently have or the production or the availability has been fast is because people didn't. There were pharmaceutical companies who began the process from scratch. Others didn't. Others went to vaccine-producing pharmaceutical companies, and they started off from what was already known, and they built on it. And also there was the sharing of information of how best this thing can be done. That is what made it possible. So, to answer your question simply, let me not rephrase the question. Let me answer your question simply. Yes, it is possible.
Okay. So it has been possible to avoid mother-to-child transmission of HIV
Yes.
During pregnancy.
Yes.
Okay. Now, here we are seeing a child who's been born with antibodies of COVID-19.
Not the COVID itself, but its antibodies.
Antibodies.
And they were very clear about this.
What does that mean? And that's what I was asking. What does that signify? That the child was exposed to COVID?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Otherwise
And
you would not-
essentially,
yes.
the child was, because the mother had COVID, right? She was in hospital for 2.5 weeks. Now, after birth, when they now tested the baby, they found out that the child is carrying the antibodies, but did not actually get sick. So she passed it on, and this is what the doctor said, that during her pregnancy, she passed it on to the child.
Okay. And it's possible for the child to get it
Yes.
and get affected.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Because, again, your question is an extremely valid one because to develop an antibody, it means your body has to have come into contact with this thing is developing a defense against. Yes. And that's what we call infection. Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Let's look quickly at numbers around the world now. If we're looking specifically at the United States, 138,188 new cases yesterday and 819 new deaths. And they're announcing now what we had definitely suspected last week with the Thanksgiving holidays and the travel that everybody did and then Black Friday thereafter. They're expecting in the next 10 days or so that these numbers are going to spike quite some. And trying to take the conversation as public as they can, but this is something that is going to affect the United States. It's going to look quite heavy in the next couple of days because they will see a spike in infections. People are going to be testing a lot more. People are going to be sick because of the travel that they've seen. It was forewarned rather, but it seems that the majority of people did not take heed to this and still traveled anyway. So we're likely to see that in the next few weeks. So looking at average about 120,000 cases that are being reported from the United States on a daily basis. And, from the Surgeon General to head of infectious diseases, they're saying that, look, they don't know how they're going to be able to get through this one. And it looks like it's going to be a deadly winter in the United States, one of the coldest in the last 5 years. So they expect that this is going to spread more significantly so with what they're seeing. So they don't know. We don't know. taking the world numbers now ramped up to 63,066,168, and now with 1,465,048 deaths, with 43,542,381 having recovered. That's what we're looking at around the world.
All right, so it's 6:15 now. Let's take a break, take a look at the weather, and then we look at the newspaper headlines this morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, live streaming on Spice FM, KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you're online, just type hello, and we will shout out to you. Hello, back at you. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
All right, this Monday morning, the sun is peeking out in Nairobi already. Mostly clear conditions at 15. We'll see highs of 25 today. 23 will be the high in Nakuru. Mostly cloudy at 15 and lows of just that. 14 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nyeri this morning. Highs of 25 and lows of 13. Clear skies in Eldoret at 11. We'll see highs of 23. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 19, going to highs of 26. Kakamega is mostly cloudy as well at 14 with highs of 26 and lows of 13. Partly cloudy conditions in Mombasa at 24, going to highs of 31 today, and mostly cloudy in Malindi at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 15. We're looking at clear conditions in Kampala at 16 degrees with highs of 26 today. Dar es Salaam, it's raining this morning at 24. That'll be the low for today, going to a high of 30. Cloudy conditions in Johannesburg at 17 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 15. It's mostly cloudy in Lagos at 26, giving way to rain later from the forecast, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Clear conditions in Kinshasa for a change, highs of 32 as well and lows of 22. Beijing is ringing in the low numbers this afternoon. Standing steady now at 0 degrees and sunny conditions. It's going to go only to a high of 3 today and a low of -6. Paris is ringing in the winter as well. Cloudy conditions at 2, highs of 8 and coming back down to a low of 2. It's also quite chilly in London at 8, highs of 10 and lows of 5. And round things off in New York, where Sunday night is 11 degrees and clear, getting into Monday morning with 12 as a high and lows of 9.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
CT Muga prepares to tell us today's proverb. Let's see who is online this morning.
Reagan Hanskel Nyandinga Jr. says he's tuned in.
Who?
Reagan Hanskel Nyandinga Jr.
Way.
He's tuned in from Homa Bay.
Okay.
Good morning, guys. Kisumu tuned in kama kawaida. That's Sir Haran Wafula. Everybody else this morning. Titus Mbeta says good morning. Alex Mbogo says hello and listening in from Nyeri. Beidasi is tuned in from Machakos. Nana Kwame Asamoah says, greetings from Germany in Dusseldorf. Anytime I want to watch your show, I'm always on my way to work. Today I have a late shift. I'm enjoying every bit of it today and the whole week. I just love Kenyans and I am Ghanaian.
Hey, welcome, Nana.
Robin Bogo says, good morning, tuning from Mombasa. And Waterman Jeffries tuning from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
All right.
Charity Minor is tuned in from Nakuru. Now, Solo says, Eric says, we say hello, or he'll put a snake around our neck. Hello. No snakes for me, thank you.
Solo Were, good morning to you and have a lovely week. No snakes for you, but well, I get one. I'll put one around my neck just for you to see.
Okay.
In fact, I'll get a photo and then ask Emilio to
You
post
will?
it.
I think you should do that. Let's see if it's true. Quickly from Vincent, he says, good morning. On this last Monday of November, mark me present for the show. Guys, imagine I have a friend from Congo who told me that he eats the ugly bird. Mwalimu has talked about a few minutes ago, Mr. Owl.
Can't even mention it.
He couldn't even mention the ugly bird and put it in brackets, Mr. Owl Mwalimo. When I heard about him, I just ended the story.
What? He eats
Ugly
it.
bird.
That's how to fight death.
To each their own.
I tell you.
That's how to fight death. Eat it.
Eat death.
You know, every time we talk about COVID, one of the things that keeps standing out is how it is affecting the youth. Because when we talk about unemployment, especially on this continent, the people who are the most affected are actually the youth. Promises that were made previously by politicians, which usually are never kept or never fulfilled. I think the non-fulfillment has become an even greater norm now, simply because of the realities of COVID. But the silver lining, if you ask me, is that the sort of turmoil that this brings about, the sort of discomfort it brings about, it's the sort of situation that forces you to really think outside the, should we say, the parameters of the norms that you're accustomed to. I heard something on BBC Radio this morning that really fascinated me in this regard. This was with reference to Ghana, where they're talking about the unemployment. And there was a union of youth who are unemployed. Yes.
Union of unemployed
Unemployed
youth.
youth.
Yes, I had never heard of this, and I thought, goodness, this is creative. This is
All right. So what do they agitate?
Well, they look after the interests of people who are unemployed and youth. So, Eric, you can't be represented. I can't be represented.
Kuisha Sisi.
Youth.
It's for youth.
Yes, not
Constitutionally
this, not
mandated.
this Kenyan.
I feel youthful.
Yes, not this Kenyan definition of youth. So long as you're alive and you feel youthful,
You don't qualify?
chronology attached to it.
Youth keeps changing.
Yes,
Those
up
below
and
70 are youthful.
youthful. You know. Yeah. If most of your teeth are intact, youthful.
Youthful.
None of that.
Okay. I'm actually going to share this photo with Lyoto so you can share it. Me,
There's actually
snake.
a photo with a snake around your neck.
Yeah. I'm sharing. City, today's proverb.
All right.
Wow, okay.
I had wondered how it is easy to determine when the people come from backgrounds that, should we say, enthrall themselves in witchcraft. Now I know.
More yes, so.
All right. An appropriate saying to accompany
Eric's
this one.
activities.
These are just his, they aren't his relatives, they're his. Don't stand in a place of danger expecting miracles.
Umenichoma. Umenichoma.
Don't stand in a place of danger expecting miracles. You just keep
You keep wrapping snakes around your neck.
experiencing the muscle of the snake around your neck. You carry on.
Okay. Let's look at the headlines.
Okay, so where to start? All right, let's look at this. I know you want to look at this big one, but we'll look at it, right? But for now, where's our cash for COVID desks? Carpenters ask. Are you surprised? Subline is, Education Ministry is in a spot after delaying to pay carpenters contracted to make desks and chairs for public schools under the 1.9 billion shillings COVID mitigation project. So, what is happening here? Artisans have expressed frustration over delayed payment after delivery of desks and chairs for public primary and secondary schools under the 1.9 billion shillings project. This is despite a promise by Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha and Basic Education Principal Secretary Bello Kipsang that the carpenters would be paid by the 6th of November. Today is?
30th.
Okay. For those who have not...
It's not yet 6th.
Oh, it's not yet 6th of November? Okay. All right.
We're going backwards. We've just started the month.
Okay. So, for those who have completed and delivered, we will start paying them from Friday. Everything is ready, according to Professor Magoha. And he was speaking in Kisii on the 30th of October. So, it seems that they were going forward at that point. Speaking at Ole Kasasi Primary School in Rongai on the same day, Dr. Kipsang said the artisans would be paid immediately upon delivery of the desks. And I quote, "We borrowed money to supply the desks." And now we quote from the artisans. "We borrowed money to supply the desks. And those we owe know that we delivered and were paid. It is so embarrassing to keep telling them lies. This is according to an artisan in Vihiga County. The carpenter, who falls in the category of persons living with disabilities, said he borrowed about 300,000 shillings to make the desks. I spent 5,000 to deliver the desks to schools, and to date I am yet to pay the transporter. And I did this to beat the deadline for delivery. The artisan's deadline for the supply of the 622,157 desks, chairs and lockers to public primary and secondary schools was on October 27th. Of the 1.9 billion shillings, 1 billion was to go to making these desks for secondary schools, while 900 million for primary schools. The government plan was a major boost for Juakali artisans and small and medium-sized enterprises involved in carpentry at the sub-county level. It is now emerging that the wait may be longer as ministry officials navigate the stringent procurement processes before payment approvals are done.
I mean, that's was expected.
What exactly? Which one? Because there are a couple of things going on here.
A
Which
couple
one was
of
expected?
delays here and there.
Oh, okay.
They aren't the only delays, remember? It just joins the queue of many other things that were considered important and and
What do we call them? What's the term? Is it unpaid bill? What's it? Pending bills.
Pending bills.
Yes. Yes.
No, but this one was not pending now.
Now it's pending.
Before, but you know, the thing, you told people that you're going to pay them. So can you
Yeah,
imagine this
Colin,
guy who
you think
borrowed?
those impending bills are
I
not told are going to be
actually-
paid?
He was going to borrow 300k,
no, I actually
305k to be
I
precise.
actually believe that when they set this thing up, if you look at the plan, it was based on an understanding that they would have this amount of money by this time.
It will be ready. It will be ready for
Yes, and then we'll be able
disbursement.
to do this by this time. We'll be able to do this by this time. And then the other realities crept in. Now, these realities didn't sort of like come up at the last moment. They had always been there. Like money to the counties, for instance.
Yep.
There's this little detail of paying people who we owe money. That little
We still
detail.
have pending bills
Yes.
from previous contracts.
Precisely. And even as we speak right now, the issue of pending bills for people who've actually performed certain contracts within the county and within the national government, those ones are still, and they're not pending as of last year. Some are 4 years old, some are 3 years old. So, as I said,
So knowing that you had these pending bills, then you go on top of your pending bills and you make promises to people who got very excited that their business was going to get a boost. And you went and told them, yes, in fact, this is what we're going to do, knowing very well that you didn't have the money. So now
hiccups
here
here
you
and
are.
there.
I beg, leave that thing, Joe. So now you come and throw people into a tailspin now. And then what do you want them to do? Meanwhile, they've supplied the desks. So.
We discussed
even
it
have
on
nice
Friday,
pictures here
remember,
of them
when we
sitting
talked
in the
about
desks.
the new stimulus package that was being rolled out by the government, and even looking at the previous stimulus packages. This was actually a stimulus package
Yes,
post-COVID.
Yes, it was.
That's why the government said, okay, we're going to have to, buy desks for schools, spend 1.7 billion shillings, so that we can then have money in the pockets of very many artisans around the country. This was the plan, right? The unfortunate
and
bit,
by the way, a good plan.
it's a very good one because you're talking about 1.7 billion shillings in circulation among this level of artisans in the country, across the country. The unfortunate thing comes when now we go to, okay, so here is the purse. How
There's
much do
nothing
we
inside.
have? Yes. Can we actually pay on time? Because delivery here was clear. The Ministry of Education did what it was supposed to do. The Ministry of Education went ahead, came up with a prototype and said, this is a standard, and said, this is how much we want to peg it at, and this is what we want you to do, deliver.
Knowing
The
full
Ministry
well
of
that you didn't have the
Education
money.
does not have money. All money is held at the Ministry of the National Treasury. Now, the National Treasury has very many other things.
So by
There
the
are
time
people who want to be paid their loans. There are other people who want to be paid their salaries. There are people who want to be paid for previous bills. There are county officials who are downing their tools because they have not received salaries. There are MPs who must get paid on time. Very many things.
It's a long queue.
It's
What-
a very long queue.
You see, the unintended consequences of this is, unfortunately, it's not even building disquiet. Even among people who ordinarily may have supported your efforts as a government, what you're then doing, you are enjoining them in the long list of people who will now not believe anything you tell them.
ever.
And the reason why they want to do so is because of the pain and the suffering they're going to go through. I'm thinking of somebody who's working at a village level and they went and borrowed money.
300,000 shillings. A guy
And
in
you could hold
a
a
young,
newspaper and say, you see
yes,
this?
yeah.
And then the letter you've been given, you see this? Someone says, that's all right, makes sense.
No. Even beyond that, CT, this gentleman, as a one example, because I'm sure they're strewn across the country, right? Because this just didn't take place in one part of Kenya. Strewn across the country, guy in Vihiga borrows 300,000 shillings. He is seeing in the public that according to government, we are going to pay you immediately. Then you come and tell the guy, actually, no, we've not been paid.
Just wait.
And he said, what do you mean you've been paid? You're lying. Because the government said we are paying immediately. And this is government. You can trust the word of the government, right?
And I've
Not
already
been
delivered
paid.
my desks.
Yeah, I've delivered.
And even if I went and
paid
picked those
transport.
desks, I cannot sell them to anybody. Desks.
Who are you selling them to?
The only customer for desk is a learning institution. I mean, you can't take them and start saying it. CT.
So you take these desks for me.
So that when your guests come, they can sit on the desk. Or you can fob them off to a
And take like
clinic.
100,
You
Say
can't.
100.
not 3. Just 100.
And also, very many of them, and you can see they are complaining that already they have had to reduce their margins because of how much the government has pegged the purchase price at. And the government has already said, this is what we want as quality for the desk. So this is the material to buy. Many of these desks, like we were talking about much earlier, guys in those local areas, this is what they use to make the desks. And then the government says, no. This is the material that we must use to make these desks. Issues. So how much they're buying the material at, and then how much you're selling to the government.
We posed this question and said, look, there have been artisans who've been making furniture for the longest time for schools, okay, right around the country. Now, did someone demonstrate to us that this material they were insisting on was going to end up making the chairs or the desks cheaper? I don't recall. If there was, I don't recall. However, they did engage the artisans. These are people who do this work anyway.
Yeah.
Schools do this even before this stimulus plan came out. Schools have been doing this. That's how schools acquire furniture, and they have furniture.
Yep.
And we raise a question, but through the same mechanism, why don't you just let the schools have the money and let them go through the process of getting these desks? After all, they know what it is that they need. But we're told this particular plan, thought out, everything. Now,
So to standardize it as well across the country. Well, on one hand, I can actually see standardize. Otherwise, you give headmasters this money.
the
start
thing
buying
is,
a desk for 10,000 bob when they've been buying a desk for 300.
headmasters don't do that.
Or school management, whoever.
You're juxtaposing this with the 10,000 bob wheelbarrows. Huh? No. What they'll probably do is probably get furniture made for them while making chairs for the school. Okay.
It's interesting because somebody just posted here on social media, and Daniel says, it's very interesting. Kenya is a country which does things contrary to the principles of logic. Imagine real suppliers are never paid on time, but people who supply air are paid up front.
Hey, yes, actually. 27 minutes to 7. Let's take a break now, see what's happening on the roads, and then look at the headlines.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi. They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot-bellied people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know.
Yeah.
She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you
And
used to do?
women are guilty about that. No,
Is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room will help you stay winning. traffic.
It's Monday morning, the sun is out, but it looks like the roads will be packed in not too long from now. We're taking a look at Mombasa Road and coming out from the SGR. That's already moving very slowly today, looking at an almost bumper-to-bumper situation, all the way then to the turnoff at JKIA and then further down towards Cabanas. It's building up slowly this morning and then through to General Motors. All right, coming off of Thika Road as well. The service lanes are looking pretty good as they can be used today. The highway is also quite thick on Thika Road, moving slowly. Coming off of Kiambu Road as well, it's already packed. Not too bad though. People are able to move without much of a problem. Forest Road has been giving up those positive vibes for the last few days and continues to do so this morning. So there's an option for you to get off of Thika Road and then into the city centre and then on through to Westlands if you need to. Coming out of Westlands, it's slowing down a little bit, realizing that the turnoffs have been shut because of the construction on the road. So you're going to have to go a long way around if you're turning roundabout to come back towards the city. So the Red Hill bypass is an option, longer, but you don't have to sit in traffic for too long. All right, we're going to look in a half hour or so and see what it looks like on the roads. For now, it doesn't look too terrible. We know that construction continues in industrial area and also at Bagathi Way. Construction is also taking place. Let's see what it looks like soon. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
24 minutes to 7, looking at the headlines. Where are these school children? That's the headline in The Nation this morning. Massive dropouts. Thousands of learners failed to show up in class when institutions partially reopened last month, raising fears of massive dropouts. Officials are unable to account for their whereabouts, and things can only get worse when schools reopen on the 4th of January next year. 20,000 grade 4, standard 8, form 4 students did not show up in school, did not turn up in school when schools reopened. Now, this is something that we even discussed on this show as well. Very many of the children who are expected to resume schooling will not be able to resume schooling for very many reasons. Some of them including the fact that there have been teenage pregnancies, early marriages, and we know this happens across the country in several communities around the country, early marriages. It has also even been reported before. We have issues of children going into the labor force, child laborers who have now basically have had to become, breadwinners for their families, and they will not see the sense of going back to school and schools reopen because they're already engaged somewhere. All right, this will happen, and we'll see very many of these ones when schools fully reopen on the 4th of January. There are those that have had to. You can imagine families that have had to relocate. And they have not relocated just because of, some factors. They've relocated because of the change in the livelihoods of their families. So when you tell them to reopen schools next year, very many of those will not be able to go to school. Uniform. You're going to a new school that requires new uniform. You don't have money to buy a uniform. So uniform will be a factor. School fees will be a factor. We're expecting to have very many of them going home. And this is one of the reasons why I'm saying I think I support the idea of reopening of schools as soon as possible so that you can, save very many of them who are likely to be more and more exposed.
Eric, the opening of schools, I support you 100%. The issue was never the opening, but the conditions under which the schools were going to be opened.
Yeah.
Because everything that we hear, we've just been talking about desks, school furniture, and how it is that there's an extremely big disconnect from the promise of what would happen with the tenders that were offered to locals, and now the payment and the delivery of these desks. It's a long list of things that one thing is said, what actually happens is a completely different one. We were told, not Secretary General told us, they were ready. We've been ready verbally to admit students back into the schools. Yes, and with this understanding, parents said, fine, it is good, let the candidate classes go back to school. The true picture of what's happening in our schools that the vast majority of the schools in this country are not really ready. If we were to go by the WHO standards, they're not ready. They don't have running water. They don't have this. They don't have the other. The only thing they have is space. And the reason why they have space is because the other classes are not there. And even then, we have reports of children testing positive.
Yep.
We have reports of teachers testing COVID positive. Now, you tell me.
And dying.
Do you need a clairvoyant to understand what will happen if everybody else who's supposed to be in school goes back to school?
Add another 10 million, because that's what
Yes.
we're looking at. If that is actually
It's not
going
difficult to
happen.
figure out what will happen.
The conditions is the issue. I mean, taking all those things into consideration, you realize, yes, it is important for children to be in a learning environment. It is very important. However, looking at that importance, does the importance trump life? It doesn't.
None of them actually is a conflict of the other. It's just the fact that, yes, the Ministry of Education, the government, the education officers on the ground should ensure that they meet the basic requirements. That you at least have the basics, because children must go back to school. We've gotten to a point where, by the way, it's no longer now a joke. We, just like Okiya Mteta was saying, this is about an entire generation getting lost. If you look at this story, for example, in the nation, 6,000 girls are out of school because of teenage pregnancies in Nandi County alone, according to the health executive, Ruth Koech. 6,000 in one county. Now, can you imagine if you just take this around the country? These are just 20,000 in grade 4, 8, and Form 4. Bring on all the other classes. You'll have very, very, very many pupils who will not be able to go back to school. Children will not have made that decision that I don't want to go to school. It's a decision that's made for them by either the adults or by other factors than situations that they find themselves in. I really cannot go back to school because my parents cannot afford to take me back to school. I cannot go back to school because my parents married me off. I cannot go back to school because I have had to go and seek work elsewhere so that I can feed and support my family. So it's a big one here for the government to basically stop joking and look at how do you ensure that children can go back to school, can have a safe learning environment, not just for the children, but for everybody else who's in that environment. The teachers, the workers, the pupils.
Remember I was telling you a story that was narrated to me by a friend of mine who is a head teacher on Fangano Island. And telling me that one of the problems they had when they admitted people back to school were the very things you're saying. Suddenly, somebody had gone off. They became fishermen. How to get this person's mind back into a learning situation is difficult. 15, 16-year-old girl went and got married. How are you going to get someone's wife back into class? Because that's what she is now.
That's what she is.
Yeah.
She's no longer a schoolgirl.
She could even be pregnant by now.
The entire conversation about learning has changed. Now, you see, this isn't something that was not unforeseen. No. This is something that one could have. You did not need a crystal ball to determine. It was clear. Now, you want to tell us that amidst all this, you're still saying, let's just, anyway, take all the children back to school.
Open school.
No. My friends, if there is one thing the government will perhaps do that will turn the very citizens of this country against them, is that one. You tell people that to take all the children back to school, and then what we know will happen happens. You'll have problems that you don't need.
Apart from not needing, probably very, very difficult to solve. To find solutions to this one will be tough.
I'm not saying there's an easy solution to this, but is the solution to take children to an environment where we know they will be infected, some will die? Is that the solution?
No.
Okay. Now, we are at a point that the government took us to. It is not as though we woke up one morning and found ourselves here. They've been steadily and methodically taking us to this point here. Now, since they've took us here, get us out of it. Find a way to solve this problem.
Deal with it.
Yes, because we as citizens, you know what? We'll tell you we do our bit. You tax the living daylights out of us, we pay. Okay? The things you ask us to do, we do. Now, we are telling you, do what it is that you said you would do. Because whatever alternatives exist, these aren't the decision a parent can make is whether to take the child to school or not. Opening schools, that's the government's decision. Whether the schools, the government schools, meet the required standards, that again is a government decision. But already, schools that can afford to, because they're private and maybe their planning is different, you already introduced disparity in learning. One which already existed, you've now made that rift even wider. Yes. So, are we seeing a situation where everything that could possibly go wrong, going wrong? Murphy and his laws now coming into effect. Is this what we're seeing?
Unfortunately.
Because if it isn't people who made desks, it is schools. If it isn't schools, it is COVID. If it isn't COVID, it is the head teachers. If it isn't the head teachers, the teachers. What is it exactly? And then, against the backdrop of people who had procured things on behalf of the county government have not been paid, against the backdrop of a county and counties that have been waiting for money to pay the list just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Where does it feature on that radar? It's not really blinking on the radar of those in government.
No.
We have other things that are blinking.
It doesn't seem to be a priority at all. It doesn't seem to be a priority at all.
This is not one of those planes that the air traffic controller is seeing on a collision path with another one. No, this one is okay. This one is flying safely. We are dealing with others. 6:45. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Keep it right here. We're looking at more and more headlines.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
That you're looking at?
No more room for fresh views on BBI, Raila tells Muslim leaders. Former Prime Minister says any gaps identified will be included in later constitutional amendments. ODM leader Raila Odinga has said there is no more time to engage Kenyans on the proposed constitutional amendments under the Building Bridges initiative. Speaking in Mombasa yesterday, Raila said those with contrary views were within their democratic right to do so, just like we said. He spoke aboard the Tamarind Dhow when he engaged leaders from the Majlis Ulama and Kenya Muslim National Advisory Council, KEMNAC, who presented their memorandum on the BBI. Okay. As things stand, he says, there is no room to accommodate fresh views on BBI. The Constitution is a living document. The gaps it identified will be filled through amendments over time. This is the first amendment to the 2010 Constitution. Even the best constitution in the world has been amended many times. The Muslim leaders were led by KEMNAC chairman Juma Ngao and Majlis Ulama's Sheikh Rishad Raja Ramadan. So,
no more room, eh?
Bring the views, it's democratic, it's okay. However, this one, no.
They'll be shelved the next time we open up this conversation.
When another time for amendment comes.
Be considered. We'll have the BBI conversation for 2 hours this morning, so we'll actually look at this. But when you're talking to civil society activists who say that they want to really, really bring together all people who feel that this is not the right time to amend the Constitution, and then also those who say that they are happy with what amendments have been contained in the Constitution. Hiyo tutaongelea hapo baadaye.
According to news from our neighbors in Ethiopia, the federal armed forces have entered and taken control of the capital of the province of Tigray. Now, there are those who, of course, dismiss this and say it isn't true. And, of course, you'll find that they're Tigrayan, and they will tell you that until the Tigrayan media tells them this is so, they will not believe this.
Yeah.
But that, to me, isn't really the news. To me, the news is, how does a country get to a point where the national armed forces are fighting a regional, within the same country?
Yep.
What is it that leads to the point where you have a full-scale war? Because this is not a tiff. It's not a disagreement over chewing gum. This is a proper fight where people are dying. Humanitarian organizations are talking about the sort of catastrophic issues you hear of when there's serious conflict of this nature. What gets people to the point where they feel they need to actually shoot each other to death or try and fight each other to death? What is it?
Power.
And then the same power.
Seeking it.
To me, that's the bottom line.
You know, if only power certainly contributes to it, but with many of the issues, if you're looking at conflicts, not just war conflict, there's something that will stand out, but it's hardly ever one thing. The quest for power may be part of it. Now remember, for the longest time, this particular region has been associated with the rulership of Ethiopia. Okay? Now, what to me seemed to be the focal point of this conflict was, right, an opportunity has been provided to put these people in their place. Let us put them in their place once and for all and stop this nonsense.
But as you ask that, it's interesting because I think what it is really, you will find that the thing that could have sorted out the problem was something that would just require some bilateral dialogue. That was what would have been necessary. However, because that did not take place, then what you have is pent-up frustration. And the thing that actually gets people to get to that point whereby they begin to slaughter one another is this frustration. It's compounded frustration year on year on year. Nothing has been done about it. We've not been able to find a way out. So then it really gets to the point whereby the frustration is being let out, and the results of that frustration is the wanton death that we see.
Seeing now.
Yeah, this is what we see. It's something that could have been sorted out if they actually sat and negotiated. Because I really do believe, look at it. Peace talks, truces, what are they? It's people coming together to have a conversation and say, how can we sort this out? And it often happens and results in peace, whether it's relative or whether it's temporary, it's peace. And most often, people are not, that outlet then for that to take place is not provided.
But why do
And it's
human beings have
resultant
to
in
get to a
this.
point where it is clear very many people have died who didn't need to have died?
didn't need to die.
Because this conversation we have at the end of it, it's not as though at the beginning we don't
We
know
couldn't
we
have
can
had it. This is the thing. We could have had the conversation.
People will die, and people who don't have to die. And actually, that's what I'm saying. It's about power. Because if you look at this conflict, it's not the ordinary citizens of Tigray who are arming to go and fight another region.
No, it's not them.
It is actually forces who are under the command of the national government, federal government, and forces who are under the command of the regional government. That means it's the leadership of these two that is basically in conflict. The people themselves, if you saw the Tigrayans going onto the streets and going to attack the other people, or people from the other regions, the Amhara, going to attack, now that would be an issue where it has actually gone on for so long that the frustration has seeped down to the people where the people feel that they need to do something about it.
So essentially you're saying this is a perfect example of bad leadership.
Yes.
Just bad leadership.
Because somebody could have taken that gauntlet and said, look, okay, knock it down, guys. Let's sort out this thing. But okay with not having a conversation whereby you could have led your people in the right direction and you decided not to. You actually decided not to. And then you allowed these deaths. So truly, if you want to look at it at the very basic level, the death that has been going on in the thousands is on your hands. Because you could have had the conversation.
We should thank God on our knees as Kenyans that our leaders get to talk and agree.
Absolutely, I think
It's
so.
very disastrous for us sometimes as citizens when they agree. But at least that seems to be our norm. People talk and agree. Because when people don't agree or people don't want to talk, this is the outcome.
This is what happens.
This is the
But
outcome.
also, in this same country, we see this a lot of times. If you look at the conflicts that we see in, for example, Marsabit County, over and over, or the issues that we see in Kapedo. Well, Kapedo,
that region of that.
They mask it and say this is cattle rustling and all.
No.
But it's not. In Marsabit, it's not. It's about certain leaders basically just deciding that I'm going to lead my people towards this. And they arm people, they incite people to fighting.
Actually, and if you look at it usually, there are a couple of variables that are at play here. Sometimes someone has failed to actually do what they're supposed to do.
Yep.
So instead of focusing on what they're supposed to do, they find fault with the people who they believe are caused the problem and they insurrect.
They insurrect something. that
It's
has
something
been done.
and there's conflict.
Some
Then they'll
feud.
talk about resources, they'll talk about water, and yet it's actually instigated.
It's a failure by themselves, basically,
Yes.
to do what they're
To actually do what they're
supposed
supposed to do.
to do. Yeah. Okay, so there's a man who committed suicide while in a jail cell. This man was serving a life sentence at the Community Maximum Security Prison because of what he did in the bloodbath that claimed 148 lives in Garissa. Remember the Garissa terrorist attack? So the Tanzanian national who was jailed in that attack, his name is Rashid Charles Mberesero, was found hanging in his cell. A report of his cell was filed by the officer in charge of security at the prison. And basically what they're saying is that he had made a rope out of his blanket and used it to hang himself. A police report indicated the body was found hanging from a window's metal grill with a piece of blanket around his neck. This guy had been receiving some treatment over a couple of months. He was injected on Thursday as per his usual medication. But now the prison officials are wondering, okay, so what happened? What led him to kill himself? Basically, the killer, one of the killers of Garissa, has found death.
Well, okay.
It's one of those that passes on like,
Sure, it seems like it was an
But
easier
of interest,
option for him.
on page 4 of the Star, Twalib Mbarak, the EACC needs foreign help in Kenyan probe. It now transpires that the CEO of the Anti-Corruption Commission said that, this probe that we are undertaking is going to take much longer.
Which one?
The Kemsa issues. That they are far more complex than would appear, and it may require, we may need the help of other foreign agencies to help us in unraveling this very complex situation here. Okay? If you look at the trailer.
Why? Because we source these things and they're not made locally.
It's not that it won't be done, it's just going to take longer. Remember, in August, they began the probe, okay?
Right.
15th August, the KEMSA CEO was suspended.
Right.
Okay? 26th August, the president directed that the Anti-Corruption Commission and Ethics Committee should actually complete the probe in 21 days.
Okay.
18th September, the Anti-Corruption Commission submits a file to the office of the public prosecutor.
Okay.
18th September, that same day, the DPP forms a team to review the findings. On October 2nd, the DPP returns files to EAC for further probe.
So now, where is the foreign connection?
For the probe.
The probe. We need somebody from outside to come and tell us what's going on inside.
So basically, they need to go in and dig deeper.
What the DPP is clearly saying, this one, there isn't enough information for us to take this thing forward. So please, find ways. And they're saying, look, for us to be able to do this, yes, we will need outside help.
That's interesting that you say that, because it's
probably because of where the money has gone to.
Because we're not talking about capacity or knowledge or understanding. It's just that you need input from those countries where
to build a solid case.
Link that in anyhow to a World Bank report that recently has come out, and it says it's time for African states to build research-focused universities afresh. Sub-Saharan Africa accounts for 13.5% of the global population, but less than 1% of global research output. In 2008, Africa produced 27,000 published papers, the same number as the Netherlands, the country on its own. There are some areas of improvement, according to a World Bank study. It showed that the quantity and quality of sub-Saharan Africa's research had increased substantially in the previous 20 years. It more than doubled its annual research output from 2003 to 2012. In addition, it increased its share of global research during the same period. But Africa's overall research record remains poor. Part of the problem is that the continent contributes less than 1% of the global expenditure on research and development. African governments don't spend a significant percentage of their gross domestic product on research. Another issue is that sub-Saharan Africa depends greatly on international collaboration and visiting academics for research output. And so it's saying, look, if we're going to get this thing up there, we have to now start depending on ourselves. This is according to the World Bank, of course. And 3 interlinked actions are crucial to revitalize African higher education. The first is the differentiation of the continent's higher education system. Some universities must become research intensive. Their resources must be focused on graduate training and research. And countries and governments then must be deliberate about making sure that part of their budget goes towards research.
Who was saying this?
This has been said, the World Bank, this study that was done by the World Bank. The same has been said indeed. We had the Abuja Accord and, the same thing did, meetings have been gone on and said, look, we need to at least put a certain percentage of our budget towards research. I mean, those have been said since 2003.
Don't you wonder sometimes that when people say these things, what on earth do they hope to achieve? What?
Who now? Who?
So
the government?
They're telling us,
Yes, okay, they've told us. What are they telling us exactly?
If you want to compete on the global stage when it comes to output and research, when we're talking about things that need to be done,
and we don't know this.
In relation to things like a corona vaccine, for example, wouldn't it be great if Africa was contributing to this as opposed to just giving?
And we don't know this.
They're coming to start giving us money, and they'll cut some of these budgets that they're talking about. You see,
you guys need
those
to
things.
see intensive research
Anyway,
not taking place.
top of the hour. Good morning. It's now 7:00. Keep it right here for more conversations.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, what are we looking at here? It's building up on
Traffic.
Mombasa Road significantly so. Trying to get us into the CBD today. Very slow coming off Mombasa Road, but not too painful at the moment. It doesn't look like what we witnessed last week, but again, we know it's just the beginning of the week. We'll see what it looks like as the hours tick by. All right, coming off of Thika Road into the CBD. Remember, you can use Forest Road. It gets into the city quicker. And also coming out of Westlands, where we see a lot of traffic this morning building up as you're trying to get towards the Westlands roundabout. Use the Red Hill bypass. There's an option, longer, true, but it will help. In terms of bypasses, the southern and eastern up this morning and can be used as well. We know that the expressway is going to contribute significantly to traffic today as you headed out. But if you can find a longer route, use a longer route, you won't get stuck in traffic. We see it building up in industrial area as well, specifically around Lunga Lunga this morning. And we're going to look at Bagathi Way. We're coming off Langata Road. It slows down some with the construction that's going on there as well. In all things, be careful. Talk to us if you need to, if you find an alternate route where guys are stuck, or you might be stuck somewhere and you're looking for somewhere, let us know. Spice FM KE, that's how to get to us on Twitter, or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We thank you very much for joining us this lovely Monday morning, the end of November. Happy 30th. We're now live on KTN Home for the next 2 hours between now and 9 o'clock. And let's begin the hour with today's proverb from C.T. Muga.
Don't stand in a place of danger expecting miracles. With reference to you, Eric, do not plant, put, place, and circle a snake around your neck expecting miracles.
Well, I got a miracle. Nothing happened.
That wasn't the miracle. That's a miracle.
Yes. There was no danger anyway.
Okay.
I've shared the photo. You've seen the many men holding the thing.
I am aware
It
that
just
there
lands
is a
on my neck
concept.
for just about 5 or so centimeters.
Eric, I've heard of photoshopping.
Oh, wow.
I've heard. There are things
don't believe this story?
No, I believe it. I believe it's photoshopped.
Okay. So let's have a conversation around the BBI. Signature collection drive up in full gear around the country. We have seen leaders going around the country. We have seen public officers also being used, and there's some outcry there about public officers and civil servants being used to collect the signatures. We've seen politicians going and drumming support for the collection of signatures. Constitutionally, it's just required to get 1 million signatures, and then those are verified by the IBC. As long as the IBC can verify these 1 million signatures are genuine Kenyan voters, then you're good to go. But those that are pushing this agenda are saying that they are actually just looking for not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 million signatures to show that Kenyans overwhelmingly support this push to amend the Constitution. Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 was published last week. It was released to the public, and what has come out clearly is that this particular bill is not the same kind of bill. It's not the same bill that was presented at the launch of the BBI report at Bomas. So, what's the conversation here? BBI drive is in full gear. The agenda here now to have the issue of amending the Constitution is also in full gear. Those that had issues about some sections of the Constitution, some of them have said, all right, well, we've seen a couple of changes. There's not exactly everything that we wanted, but we are okay. We shall move on. The Amani National Congress leader, for example, had never been opposed to the BBI report. He was just saying that there's some issues that he felt that needed to be addressed, but now he's out there in full gear campaigning for the BBI. We have seen the Deputy President, and we'll be having a conversation around this. The Deputy President had raised issues that at the launch of this report at Bomas of Kenya. Now he's saying, there are some gains that have been made since then. It's a bit different. And we are avoiding a lose-lose situation. Now we are in a win-lose situation. We can go for a win-win. He's still playing around with words. Civil society activists, however, there are those that have come out clearly even before this and said, look, we are opposed to any move to amend this Constitution. And some of them, 5 of them actually have taken a case to court, and we spoke to them. This included Dr. David Ndii and Jerotich Seii and Wanjiru Gekonyo and 2 others who have gone to court, and they're saying you'd like to ring-fence some sections of the Constitution against any just frivolous amendments. Now, yesterday, they were out there addressing the media, and they said they will not rest until they stop this reggae once and for all. They think that the plans to amend the Constitution are unconstitutional. This whole agenda is flawed, that there should be another way of going about it. First of all, they say that this whole route of going through, collecting signatures is hoodwinking Kenyans and going through the back door. If it has to be a popular initiative, then the popular initiative has to start from the people, not the government coming up and then going to the people and telling them, no, people, this is your initiative, so it is your popular initiative. No. If it's a government, go to parliament. If it's a people themselves, go through the popular initiative. So they came out yesterday and they were addressing this. Among them, the people who were addressing this was Dr. David Ndii, Martha Karua, the leader of NARC Kenya. We've got Boniface Mwangi, who's the activist and leader of a political party as well. Jerotich Seii was there, and 2 of them are joining us this morning, and this is Jerotich Seii and Boniface Mwangi. Boniface Mwangi is activist and award-winning photojournalist. Jerotich Seii is an active citizen and a member of this show. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Glad to have you guys. We are glad to have you, and welcome to the Situation Room this morning.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Sharo, I don't want to start with you because we've already talked about this with you, and we'll have more conversations on this. Boniface, here you are yesterday joining the Linda Katiba movement, and you're saying that you want to stop the reggae. Why? What's the problem?
We don't need to have any amendments in the Constitution at this stage because there's no need to do that. And you just wrongly said that it's a government initiative. It's not a government initiative. It's an initiative between 2 men, Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, and it's a way to grab power illegally. So there's no need to do that.
I would have assumed, Boniface, first of all, good morning, Boniface. I would have assumed that the president already has power. He is the president. And I would also assume that if you are leader of the opposition, you do have power as the opposition. So this new power that they want to grab, what is it?
You're assuming wrong. There's no opposition. Raila Odinga works for Uhuru Kenyatta. So the power they're
Boniface,
trying
you
to
make it
do
sound
that-
as though they have an employment contract.
They do. Don't you see nowadays that mtu wa mkono wa Uhuru ni Raila Odinga? When there was the Huduma card, it was Raila Odinga on the billboards advertising that. He's a Jubilee influencer. But on a serious note, the amendments that they're actually seeking is actually blotting the government, creating the office of the Prime Minister, which you don't really need, and ensuring that when Uhuru ends his term into 2022, he has a way to come back 2023. You just spoke about corruption in this country the previous hour, and you said that Taib is looking for help from foreign governments to fight corruption. The COVID millionaires haven't been charged. The existing laws can charge people for corruption, but they're not being used. So my point is, the existing laws are more than enough to actually run this country. Why do we need new laws?
I agree with you that they're sufficient to run the country, but what I do know that even if they're sufficient, at that point or at the time of promulgation, the Constitution was just, should we say, in theoretical form. Now, would you then not argue that when you start putting the Constitution into practice and you start applying it, that things that prior to that, things which had not come up, now come up, and perhaps there would be a need for an amendment?
I agree with you, and that's what I would like to point out of two laws that actually are in place that haven't been followed. The two-agenda rule, where the president was supposed to actually appoint, ensure that the two-agenda rule is met. In his own cabinet, he hasn't appointed enough women. That is number one. Number two, in 2014, they did the Security Amendments Bill, which took away the independence of the police. So every time they change the laws, they don't change the laws to benefit the country, they change the law to benefit individuals. And so what Uhuru is trying to do is weaken the Constitution so that when he leaves power, he doesn't go to jail. Because what you have in power is a criminal president. And he knows very well an independent judiciary will jail Uhuru Kenyatta. Believe me.
Boniface, wouldn't you agree that for us to get to the point where we're thinking of jailing the president, there needs to be a case against him, and this matter needs to have been determined by a court of law that indeed he's guilty, surely? Are we just going to judge him? Are we going to just judge him on what we know and condemn him and determine that he should be jailed, surely?
I think okay, that's an opinion that I think would now then require Boniface Mwangi and others like you, if you've got a case against citizen Uhuru Kenyatta, to take it to court, and then let's see if it's proven that
yes, leave power. Right now, he'll kill us if you take it to court.
That's what I'm saying. Citizen, that's what I said. If you've got a case against, if you've got a case against citizen Uhuru Kenyatta in 2023, then you have the opportunity to take it up. Let's bring
That's
in
the reason why we need BBI to fail. If BBI fails, he doesn't come back as a prime minister or some small position from Gatundu, then you can take the man to jail.
Let's bring in Jerotich Seii at this point as well. Chero, the push to block the BBI and the entire process, and even the collection of signatures for a referendum. This is something that you've taken to court yourselves, and now you're saying that as Linda Katiba, you feel it's ill-timed and it's actually inappropriate. It's illegal. How is it illegal?
Well, you see what happened, and good morning. Good to see all of you.
Good morning.
Yes. You know, what I have understood, and from the very beginning, long before it became popular or fashionable to say no to BBI, some of us have been very clear about the fact that it is nothing more than a Trojan horse. You see, when the BBI, this creature of the March 2018 handshake kicked in, the initial idea was that the task force was to do policy and administrative reforms. The task force was in place to go around the 47 counties and see what is it around the 9-point agenda that we could put together and come up with a series of policy and administrative reforms. But as this evolved and we saw the first iteration of the report, which was eventually rejected, we moved into a space where the task force became the steering committee, which was expanded to include technical experts. Yep. And now they were tasked with also adding statutory and constitutional changes. And so the evolution of the process for me confirms that it was nothing more than a Trojan horse from the beginning to allow two men to hook the country into believing that this is a way to cease hostilities, which in and of itself is not a bad thing, but actually an underlying was the idea that the Constitution was going to be aggressively amended to the extent that it looks like a repeal. And, for me to see the government going ahead to use resources to gather the 1 million signatures, think back to Nakuru court when he was collecting his 1 million signatures. Did he use government resources? Did he use state apparatus to go around with the party to collect the signatures? Not at all. So when you look at the whole setup, it stinks of fraud. It is a travesty of justice. And I'm glad that at 8 a.m. you will have Honorable Shollei who will go into the detail, the substance of what is so fishy and what is so unconstitutional within the amendment. And this last amendment that was launched again last week when the signature drive began, you can go ahead and see how quickly they change. They say there's no room for improvement. Then suddenly you see words and syntax and grammar being changed, a couple of things being changed to pacify some people here and there. But ultimately, this process is not about the Kenyans. And let me ask you, my three friends over there, how are your electricity bills? How are your hospital bills? You were talking about kids going back to school the other day. We are talking about a situation. This country is in crisis. This is not a constitutional moment. This is a moment where the Constitution of Kenya 2010 should be fully and completely implemented. By the time you're coming to me to tell me that this Constitution is no longer fit for purpose, you need to demonstrate to me the ways in which you have attempted to implement the Constitution fully, and it has failed. And you've said, Nyeri, you guys, we have tried. But as Boni said, ultimately, it's about people trying to consolidate power. It's an elite compact at the top, which is meant to consolidate power for a few forever. And the rest of us Kenyans are being hoodwinked into believing that this BBI process is about us, and it's not about us.
Jerotich, if I can ask you on that point, you said something just a few minutes, you said something just a few seconds ago, which I think is extremely important. You said that people may be hoodwinked into believing that the entire Constitution is going to be changed, or there's going to be something major that is being brought about in terms of amending the Constitution, but it's a few things. And I think it's important for us to know, is it a few things that are being changed, or are we going to see a huge change in this Constitution?
It is so massive. And you remember when you last had Dr. Ndi and me on this show, we were talking about the fact that we're in court to explore the basic structure doctrine. The changes are so massive. You're touching 14 out of 18 chapters in this Constitution. It is not an amendment process. An amendment means that maybe I adjust my hair a little bit, but if I shave my hair off, then we are not amending my hairstyle. You're changing it completely. And our whole argument is that when you go into a process, hoodwinking Kenyans into believing that you're making a few ameliorative changes here and there to make it work better for you because the current Constitution is not fit for purpose. That is a hoodwink. On top of that, the nefariousness of the insertions, especially around devolution, and the two-thirds gender principle, which is introducing a sunset clause, and devolution, which is the cornerstone for the advancement of marginalized communities that was entrenched in sessional paper number 10 back in 1964. We are seeing a clawback of that. When you begin to include and insert things, for example, the highest amount allocated to a county cannot be more than 3 times the lowest amount. So if I am receiving 1 shilling per capita in County X, and I'm the lowest county, it means County Y should not receive more than 3. So there's never going to be more than 3 times in terms of the difference. What does that mean? When you come to counties like Lamu, Wajir, Garissa, Kwale, Mandera, Marsabit, Turkana, historically marginalized counties, you're rolling it back. But then you insert sweeteners such as the Ward Development Fund, or you increase the number of constituencies, so people are running around saying, we shall get more money, 140-something million in our constituencies. But in actual fact, when you're looking at devolution, even if you are saying it's 35%, you're clawing back the very reason why devolution was put in place, to ensure that the systemically, historically architecturally marginalized counties have an opportunity to advance. And if you are saying the 35% that will be allocated will be determined according to settlements and services, what are you saying? If you are saying, I'm sitting under a tree somewhere in Marsabit, there's a small settlement there, there's an assistant chief, yes, you can call it a settlement. But the second you say my allocation of resources to you will depend on services, then you will look at that settlement and say, are there schools? Is there industry? Are there roads? What type of infrastructure investment has there been there? And then the answer will be none. And then the question will be why? But they're not asking the question why. And the answer lies in sessional paper number 10. So ultimately, what you're saying is we are giving you more, but we're going to develop a new, stringent, deadly series of criteria that will continue to entrench marginalization in the historically marginalized counties. So devolution will never be given a chance to work. Instead, we will go back to a space of centralized resource allocation and the one man, 1 shilling, 1 vote kind of concept.
Jerotich, I cannot find
deadly document.
I cannot find fault with your logic at all. At all. But let me ask this question.
Yes.
If we were to look at this BBI process, the genesis, what was touted as being what they were seeking to prevent, statements by politicians, a process led by politicians, and now a discussion arising from what the politicians have come up with. What, with the exception, you're going to tell me we should try and implement the constitution. I'm going to say spot on. What then is the alternative to the BBI? A practical, workable alternative. What is it?
You've just said it. Tekeleza Katiba. I mean, the practical alternative is
that's the theory of it.
Process.
That's the theory of it. Everyone says, make sure you implement it. How do you ensure it is actually implemented? That's what I'm asking.
But this is why we yesterday launched the Linda Katiba movement. We are saying that at the end of the day, what we are facing as Kenyans is an existential threat to Kenya through the tampering with and violation of the Constitution through this BBI process. When we say Linda Katiba, we are saying protect and defend the Constitution. You see, I agree with you that it's one thing, Titi, we can run around and say we don't want this, we don't like it, it's a Trojan horse. We can even go to court and seek guidance and so on and so forth and seek advice on how to move forward on some of these issues. But unless we come up with a robust initiative that is not necessarily a reaction to BBI, but rather a proactive commitment by committed Wakenya, by patriots, to say we are going to protect and defend the Constitution of Kenya. Number one, because all flanks of the Constitution of Kenya right now are wide open to attack, and this is why BBI has come in. Number two, and most importantly, and why the political class, the elite political class is talking about BBI, is this issue of divisive elections, this issue of winner takes all. It really boils down to IBC and its working. And even when you read the BBI, the Amendment Act, you can see that they still continue fiddling with IBC. If we dealt with issues of electoral justice, if we dealt with the servers that were never opened, this issue of winner take all would never arise. Example, Usain Bolt runs. He wins the 100 meters. He's done it excellently. And then you have second and third. And then suddenly people say, actually, it's not fair. You know what? Usain should not get the gold alone. Let's figure out a way that they can, in a dead heat, finish at the same time and all be awarded the gold. You see, this is the logic of the argument behind winner takes all, which would be rectified if we dealt with electoral issues within the IBC. And then there's issues of governance and corruption. You see us talking about it, KEMSA, switch off KPLC, managed equipment service, etc., etc. And finally, the policy environment. So, Titi, to answer your question, ultimately, what we need and what we are doing as Linda Katiba is raising a force, raising a formation of individuals who will counter BBI and any other mischievous nefariousness in future, to say first and foremost, we have a working and workable constitution.
Jerotich, what I'm seeking to actually ask you is this, really, in all honesty. Yes. Now, speaking as one Kenyan to another, okay?
Yes.
Here we have a situation where every problem that you've mentioned is real, but they're not a problem, they're symptoms. whether it's KEMSA, whether it's desks, whether it is water in schools, whether it is counties receiving money, those aren't problems. They are symptoms. Whether it is IEBC, the problems in IEBC are not problems. They are symptoms of a bigger problem. Now, this bigger problem, we assume that the Constitution and hopefully the implementation of it would bring us that. And if I understood the argument of the BBI, well, it was the divisions that we have because of the winner-takes-all setup we have is what guarantees that the problems will continue. And their argument seemed to have been, if we find a level, politically speaking, playing ground where everybody gets to a share of the big cake, then we are able to actually formulate something that will work. I personally don't think that is actually true. That is just political gimmickry. But what is, again, the question I asked before. Yes, Linda Katiba, the thinking behind it sound. It isn't the only thinking we've had of this nature. What can we practically do to ensure that when you talk of a system that works like the IEBC, it actually works?
So the question you're asking is then how do we ensure that this Katiba that we are lindering is actually implemented?
Yes.
And it works for us?
Yes, because it's the Katiba that we have and the problems around it. We still have problems, and yet we have an excellent Katiba.
Yeah.
So,
and we still have issues.
Okay.
So let's answer that question when we come back, Chero. Let's take a break at 25 minutes now after 7. We are speaking with Jerotich Seii, active citizen, and Boniface Mwangi. He's also an activist and award-winning photojournalist and also a politician. We are talking about the BBI, the Linda Katiba movement of civil society activists coming out and saying this is wrong and we are completely opposed to it, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we stop reggae. 25 after 7, live on KTN Home, on Spice FM, online. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those many people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice. Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you used to do?
And women are guilty about that.
Is your wife listening to this show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room will help you stay winning. Spice FM. Spice up your life.
All right, we're still looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, currently at 14 degrees. Bit of a cool morning, highs of 25. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nakuru at 16, highs of 23 and lows of 15. It's clear in Nyeri at 14, going to highs of 25 and lows of 13 today. Bit chilly in Eldoret at 9. That'll be the low for today, highs of 23 and mostly cloudy conditions. The rain has started in Kisumu at 21. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 19. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 17 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 13. Clear conditions in Mombasa today with highs of 31 and lows of 25. Where in Malindi, it's mostly cloudy at 18. Got highs of 24 and lows of 16 today. Kampala is cloudy at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 16. Now the rain has started in Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees. That'll be the low for today with highs of 30. And also the heavens have opened up in Johannesburg as well. Light rain at 16, highs of 23 and lows of 15. It's partly cloudy in Lagos at 26, highs of 32 and lows of 25. And finally for now in Kinshasa, it's mostly cloudy at 24, highs of 32 and lows of 22.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Traffic.
Trying to get away from the madness that is Mombasa Road this morning. Suggestions are being given of outer ring that you can use to get into the CBD if you want to go the longer way. But because of the traffic that we see coming off Mombasa Road then towards Cabanas, it's a mess this morning, and all from all different directions. But Outer Ring will provide you with some kind of reprieve. Getting off Thika Road, remember Forest Road is our star of the streets again, because you can use that to get into the CBD without too much of wahala, right? Coming out of Westlands, you can also use the Red Hill bypass, getting into the CBD from there as well, because there's a mess. Coming off James Gishuru, coming down Wayaki Way, the construction that's taking place on Wayaki Way today is making things look crazy. So there's options for you to use today as well. Or you want to use an even longer route, go via the way of the Kikuyu bypass. Come out on the southern bypass, but that will be one for the sites today. All right, let us know. If you're stuck anywhere else, you have an option, let us know. Another option on Thika Road today is use the service lanes. Today, they are your friend. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter or text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings done right.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and spicefm.co.ke. That's our website. This hour, we're having a conversation around the BBI. The signature collection drive is well up and underway across the country, and civil society organizations have come together under the Linda Katiba initiative, and they're saying that they'd like, they're going to oppose this entire collection of signatures drive and the bill and efforts to amend the constitution. Speaking with us this morning is active citizen Jerotich Seii and also activist and photojournalist Boniface Mwangi. Just as we went to the break, the conversation that we were having and the question that you asked Chero and Boniface CT before we went to the break was, so we're talking about Linda Katiba. How do we Linda Katiba and make sure that then this Katiba is fully implemented and we realize all the gains and the benefits that we wanted to realize in the Katiba, right? That's the question that we are asking.
That's the question I'm asking, because against the background of what we know or what we've seen and the things that we find unpalatable, we understand that. However, this alternative, which is practical and which will work.
All right. So who wants to go first? Let's start with you, Boniface.
So the power belongs to the people of this republic. And we are the ones who can vote yes or no to the BBI. The first thing you need to do is oppose BBI. When you go, the genesis of the BBI was because of electoral violence and injustice. BBI doesn't address that. The truth is, every election, people die and they never get justice. And in every handshake, the people are never part of the discussion. It's about sharing power between the two men who win. So you go back to the 2007, Kibaki Raila shook hands, Raila becomes prime minister. 2013, there was no handshake, but there was like an agreement. 2017, Raila, there's a dispute, Uhuru becomes president. Come 2018, there's a handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. We never spoke about justice for the victims and how to stop the stealing of elections or election rigging. So BBI doesn't address those issues. BBI introduces another thing that we don't even need. Why do we need more positions for members of parliament? So, how do we fulfill the constitution? By ensuring that people who are mutilating it get kicked out of power in 2022. Anyone involved in BBI should go home, because there's nothing in BBI that will make Kenya better. The existing laws can make this country progressive and can make sure that there's no inequality, but they're not being followed.
Why are they not being followed?
Because you have a lawbreaker at State House. You have a president who defies court orders. You have a president who breaks the law. You have the president who wakes up and says, my friends lost in the last election. I'm going to create administrative secretaries.
But all this with an existing constitution.
No.
So even if we removed one group of leaders from power,
yes,
how do we guarantee that the next group of leaders from power, what if even if it's Boniface Mwangi who goes to State House, how do we ensure that the next crop of leaders observe and live up to the ideals of that constitution?
So we shall know them by their fruits. The people in power today are KANU political orphans. They were taught by Moi. So they can never go away far from the tree, like who their father was. So we must ensure that the leaders we elect I don't come from this very bad poison fruit called KANU.
You know, this constitutional development we keep speaking of, we forget that it began in the Moi era, not in the Kibaki era. This very same Moi, the draconian Moi that I keep hearing of, is the same Moi who actually ushered in multipartism. So...
he capitulated.
No.
He utterly capitulated.
Yes,
there.
Semantics permitting, he may have, but remember that the alternatives were always there. I am merely stating what happened.
I think I'm still not getting the answer. The answer to this, is we have a constitution of Kenya 2010, which has been hailed as very progressive, which is what you're saying is a very progressive constitution. But at the same time, you're telling us that in the implementation of this constitution, we have fallen short. So if we say that let's linda this katiba, that this katiba has absolutely no kinks, let's work with it. How do we ensure that we get the full benefit of the constitution?
So we must have a movement of the people to protect the constitution and find the people who can actually protect it to get into power.
You see, if I may jump in here, and I'm trying to understand, Eric and CP, what you're asking. There's not a single aspect of malfeasance, mismanagement, maladministration in this country that stems from the Constitution of Kenya 2010. It actually stems from a disobedience and a defiance of the Constitution of Kenya. Mm-hmm. And as Boni rightly stated it, when you have a head of state who spits in the face of constitutionalism, who is himself invested in various financial empires and political exploits, what does it do? Monkey see, monkey do. He ends up, and I'm talking about the entire Jubilee administration, for all of those who think I work for Ruto. I'm talking about the Jubilee administration, Uhuruto. The past 8 years of utter, complete, gross mismanagement. Not a single aspect of that mismanagement would have prevailed if there was a respect for the Constitution. If you go to issues of public procurement, if you go to issues of finance management, all the answers lie there. The procurement issues we have, KEMSA, Managed Equipment Scheme, KPLC and the energy sector, roads, etc., SGR. Had there been a respect for the Constitution of Kenya, we wouldn't be discussing this. But because it's monkey see, monkey do, it's a cascading effect. Leadership, the leader, President Uhuru Kenyatta, has shown members of his government that they can, with impunity, disobey the Constitution. We have nothing wrong with our Constitution, and it embodies the will of the Kenyan people.
So if we have a constitution now, right? We have a constitution now, and essentially what we are saying is we don't need to touch this constitution. The rule of law is what needs to be followed. We don't need to touch the constitution. And according to what you're saying, if we have leaders there who are not following this same rule of law, what is to guarantee that if they are removed and you bring in a new set of leaders, what is to guarantee that they then would pursue and follow the rule of law?
It is again the character, and Boni said we shall know them by their fruits. Number one, if we were to reform this IEBC so that we don't have servers sitting in France, so that we don't have Chris Musando's murdered because they refuse to give up credentials and so on and so forth. If we don't have electoral systems that are fraught and rigged from the get-go, people might actually get the leaders they actually want to see in place and in power. And if the leaders in power, and I'm talking now about the legislature, our elected leaders who have a duty of care, who have fiduciary oversight over the accounts of this country, who have been voted in by the electorate. If they go to Bunge to start taking brown envelopes, refusing to enact legislation around, for example, the 2/3 gender rule, hence the advisory to dissolve parliament, we as the people can say, tutawatoa nyinyi nyote. And the problem is, we have a situation where also the legislators look at us and say, Utadu, we shall be rigged in, we shall rig ourselves in, we shall continue to earn our high salaries. So it is a fundamental problem of leadership, and it's coupled with a flawed electoral system. It is not a flawed constitution. And let me say something about amendments. Amendments ultimately are ameliorative. They are corrective. They are not repealed. When Section 2A was repealed, it was removed, allowing for multipartyism. That was a significant change. You call it a repeal. But if you look at even what BBI is proposing, they're going down a repeal pathway. They're literally saying, we want to alter this whole constitution, and arguing that it is this constitution, which is the sovereign will of the people of Kenya, of you and me, all of us here. When we promulgated it in August 2010, we are saying this is the reason why things are bad in Kenya. What things are wrong in Kenya because of defiance, disobedience, impunity, and disrespect for the rule of law. It is our leaders who are the problem.
But we seem to speak as though if the president and the cohort of people he sort of like has some charming understanding with agree on something, it automatically becomes law. We have other arms of government. What do they do? Are we saying, therefore, that the legislature and parliament are also in cahoots so that we are actually done for, we are doomed, and everything that will happen anyway because there is no viable check and balance in this country? Is that what we're saying?
Bonnie?
Yes, that's what you're saying, because what Uhuru did by co-opting Raila into the government is actually killing the National Assembly. So instead of having a National Assembly that checks on government excesses, the National Assembly became Uhuru's rubber stamp. And then the other thing we have is actually when we go to court and we get court orders, Uhuru defies those court orders. So the only way to defend this constitution is by ensuring that it's not changed. And when Uhuru leaves power, we can get men and women who can actually implement it fully. It hasn't been implemented. The Chief Justice told the President that Parliament as it is unconstitutionally formed. But the President hasn't done anything about it. So because we're in a very hard position where we can't trust Parliament, we can't trust the President, the only last thing we have is the judiciary, which Uhuru wants to take away by this BBI. We must try as much as we can to defend it for the next 2 years. And with the hope that the people who come next, and the way we vote as voters, we're going to elect leaders who are not going to betray the Constitution.
So essentially, if I were to understand you well, Boniface, you're saying that we find ourselves in a fairly hopeless situation and we should just give up because Parliament Parliament seems to have lost its teeth if it had any. The judiciary is iffy.
Has been caged.
Yes, and if you're talking about the opposition, that one went to the dogs a hell of a long time ago, if you'll pardon my French.
Yes.
And if you talk about the leadership, well, we don't even want to talk about it and have any canine associations with it. So we're actually saying that we are in a fairly helpless and hopeless situation. Is it really true?
The power belongs to the people. We are more powerful than the people in power. So if we just take our stand and say no to BBI, Uhuru Kenyatta has only one vote, Raila has only one vote, Ruto has only one vote. We must ensure that there's no rigging of BBI, because if there's no rigging, BBI will fail.
Mm-hmm. How can we ensure that?
It's going to fail completely.
I think, and when you say the power is in the hands of the people, I understand that and I get it. But then now, do Kenyans really understand the power that they have to be able to bring this kind of change about beyond voting yes or no? Because if you ask me, that's the beginning of the process. Once you say yes or no, there are so many other things then that have to be done thereafter. The realization of the responsibility of then who you bring into power after that, to Linda Katiba, for example, to say that here's the constitution that exists that actually can be brought in and people should follow the rule of law. Do Kenyans realize from where you are sitting? Do they realize the power that they have and are ready to do something about it? Or is it a document that has been presented to them at this point? And they say, we're going to accept the document.
An abused and beaten down populace. A population that is so poor that is skirting or flirting with completely falling off the edge because of all the daily things we have to deal with, our bills, our daily life. We are disempowered to the point that we don't realize how powerful we are. And I want to say something, too. Even if Right now, we understand chiefs and assistant chiefs have been going around collecting, using government resources to collect these signatures. And then it'll be pushed through county assemblies, and then we find ourselves in a referendum. Let me tell you, even if we mounted, and we are mounting, a most robust no campaign, has the IEBC been touched? If the IEBC has not been touched, whatever we vote, the millions of us who would say no, if we use our common sense for a minute, divorce ourselves from our political and tribal kingpins who are telling us think this way or think that way, and say, for me, Jerotich, as a Kenyan, is this yes going to ameliorate my life, or am I saying yes to support an elite compact elsewhere that has nothing to do with me? If people thought like that, they would say no. Okay, so we go vote no. Then what will IEBC do? That's why we are saying this is the cart before the horse. The issue here is that if we are going to have even a franchisement process that is free and fair, we have to resolve and reform the IEBC while we protect the Constitution of Kenya. But power belongs to the people. And when we say that over and over again, maybe people will begin to understand and believe it. But right now, we have always seen ethnicity and political party spaces weaponized against us. So if you open your mouth, you're saying that because you're a Kikuyu, or you're saying that because you're a Luo, or you're saying that because you're a Kalenjin, or you're saying that because you're civil society getting money from where, or you're saying this because you're Tanga or Kieleweke. The politics of division mean that there's so much noise in the room that we have no chance as Kenyans to think clearly. And what we are saying as Linda Katiba is step back, think for yourself. But right now, if you have assistant chiefs being given deadlines, being given ultimatums, you have to bring me X number of thousand signatures. You're just going around the houses at night. People are being forced to sign. This is what we are hearing. By tomorrow, if they say 7 days for 1 million signatures, it means that they already had a program in place and they knew how they were going to go for signatures.
When you're running a campaign, you have a program. I want to ask you this question, Chero. I want to ask, and even you, Boniface, when the Building Bridges initiative was announced by the president and it was even gazetted, there was a clear path to what they were supposed to do. There was a nine-point agenda. There was, let's look at what has been ailing us as a country. Let's create this team. Okay, let's not even talk about, the formation of the team, whether it was all inclusive or not. Let's just say that team was formed. It went around the country and it was collecting views. Did the civil society, did you, Boniface Mwangi and your political party, did you, Jerotich Seii, as an active citizen, did you present your views now that you have very strong views that maybe it's IEBC that needs reform, that our problem post and pre-election is the issue of leadership and IEBC? Did you present these views to this team?
May I start off? Oh, sorry, Bonnie, do you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead, Chero.
Okay. For me, from the very beginning, and I am on record saying that it was a flawed process from the very beginning. And I refuse to participate because I refuse to legitimize a flawed process. You cannot say something is flawed and then you jump in to start engaging inside there. From the very beginning, and trust me, I have read all these documents. I'm not even shouting on the outside. Even if I did not participate or support, I have thoroughly scrutinized these documents to understand what it is and why I continue to believe that it is a Trojan horse and it is a falsehood and it is a way to hoodwink the people of Kenya. So I will answer categorically. I did not go to any of those sessions. However, I know that they went around on this 9-point agenda to 47 counties. And I know that actually from a very personal perspective because my dear father would send us selfies from every county that he visited with the task force when initially, and let me underscore, and I say this at the beginning, their task was policy and administrative reform. What in these 9 points, when we go around the 47 counties, can we come back and translate into a series of policy and administrative reforms? At that point, there was no mention of the Constitution. But me had already seen, and several of us had seen the mischief afoot. And when they came back with their report, we said, Allah, this report that was around policy and administrative reforms has now evolved into a raft of far-reaching constitutional amendments. And then they were taken one step further and turned into a steering committee with other technical experts, and they were now told to come back with a final report that looks at statutory or constitutional changes. It was a hoodwink. It went from saying, we have shaken hands, we want to be peaceful, we want to love one another, we want to talk about what is going wrong in this country, to a space where now now we are at statutory
Okay.
constitutional
I'm gonna
change
ask
level.
the second part
So
of the
it's a
question,
hoodwink.
but before that, let's
It's a
hear
hoodwink.
Boniface. Did you
Yes.
present your views and why?
No, I did not, because it was an illegal process that was not necessary. And I want to take a step back and talk about you guys saying how powerless we are. We're not powerless. The multi-party democracy came because of young people going to the streets to demonstrate against Kanu's regime and repeal Section 2A. Kanu lost power in 2002 because people showed up and voted Moi out and his team. 2007, 2013, 2017, every time there's been an election rigging, it's the people who defend and protest on those things. The problem is the people they protest on their behalf and they try to defer to the
All right, Boniface, we're having issues with your line, Boniface. We're having issues with your line. The second question I wanted to ask in the run-up and the follow-up to that was, so now that neither of you presented your views to this because you felt that from the very beginning this was a flawed process, there are very many others who presented their views before the same task force, before the same team, and they felt that this is what they wanted to present. Now, is there anything in the report that, if you read the report, not just the report, but the findings of the task force as it went around the country, is it not possible that there are people who went and presented whatever they were presenting could then also mean that we needed some fundamental changes to the way we are governed and the way we run ourselves as a country? Is that not possible, Chero?
I think, and I asked earlier on this year, I said, I want to know the Fatma, the Wanjiro, the Chepkoech, the Atieno, the Mora, who asked for a prime minister, who asked for 5 people to consolidate their power there at the very top. I spoke with some comrades from Marsabit who said they even appeared before the committee to present their views, in fact, discussing the need for additional constituencies in Marsabit County. When you look at even the additional constituencies that are being issued or given or promised in this final version of the amendment bill, do you see Marsabit there? So I also want to add that even those who came and put forward their views, many of those views never made the cut. And of course, you cannot have every single view. I've heard that argument. You cannot have every single view make the cut. But what made them choose certain views over others? And what made them instead certain views or ideas that actually push us towards that constitutional change space? And finally, those who like to say that, we should keep quiet because we did not give our views and so on, I reiterate and underscore that I'm a citizen of the Republic of Kenya and I have a right to voice my views. I will voice and I will not be boxed or painted into the corner of BBI, as in you had to be inside it, discussing it so that you have a voice in this country. Even those of us who are opposed to it have a voice, and we will continue to speak. And in fact, we will study that document far more than those who are busy giving their views around the country, and will come up with very clear reasons why, on top of the process being illegal to begin with and a hoodwink, it is actually deadly and devastating for constitutionalism and the rule of law.
The people who are giving their signatures to this at this time, and let's look at what's really going on the ground right now. Those who are giving their signatures, there's some people who would go along with the process politically just because. And it seems as if this is rolling down the street. It's going on as we speak. And we're saying, are we going to be able to stop it in its tracks and get people to actually see this thing for what it is, according to you? Are we going to be able to do that? Because it looks like, the show is already going on and Act 2 is coming into town. So what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Bonnie?
So the National Intelligence Service has given the government feedback on BBI, and I've told them that it's going to fail. That's the reason why the government is using chief, administration, police, and fear and intimidation to get the signatures. Civil servants have been forced to sign the BBI forms. So there's not a popular mandate by anyone.
Boniface, I am going to ask you to provide evidence for what you're saying at some point.
Evidence.
But carry on.
Publicly. It's Fred Matiang'i who launched the BBI signature drive. It's also an illegal thing because it's a CS. He's not supposed to get involved in politics. So this thing is not being run by well-wishers and political party members. It's being run like a government project, but it's not a government project. So as far as we are concerned, it's going to fail unless they steal. And so, how are we going to succeed? The people who are hungry, who are sick, their kids are home, doctors have no PPEs, know very well that BBI is a sham, it's a hoax, and it must fail. So unless the government has a way of faking signatures, they cannot meet the target. So we meet at the ballot. But the other thing we need to do, we intend to go to court to stop this illegal process. The government is using our taxes to satisfy the needs and the greediness of two men.
We've been told nobody can stop reggae. This
Yep.
is psyop. We are constantly being threatened and abused. You should see the abuse being hurled on social media and other spaces. And you know, it's an attempt to say, actually, you will never succeed. But it is because, and I underscore what Boni said, they're running scared. The acceptance levels, I don't have the polls in front of me, CT, but there is evidence. There's been some polls done around the acceptability of BBI versus, in fact, I read somewhere it was even at 11%. This is unprecedented. I think the two gentlemen who shook hands were expecting that they would have at least 60 or 70% and landslide their way into this new version of the Constitution, which is ultimately legal in how they are doing it. But we will not be intimidated. We are not afraid. We have gone through a lot of these things. Even if they call us whatever keyboard warriors, if we were so irrelevant as keyboard warriors, why are we causing such ripples?
You know, the beauty of
there's
this
corona,
entire...
So we cannot maandamano, and we cannot do these types of things without getting ourselves caught up in situations and being super spreaders. So yes, we are not on the streets right now, but we are doing public education, public advocacy. And I have a message to the middle class. And you know, my sister and brothers in the Situation Room, the middle class listens a lot to this particular station. You know, the middle class sits around quietly, almost embarrassed, afraid to engage. They think maandamano, struggle for rights, is the business of unemployed youth from Korogocho or from Madare or from Kibra. Let those ones go and be fodder for police bullets. Us guys will sit pretty, pretending that we are not broke, pretending that we are not able to meet our rent, pretending that we can afford hospital bills. Na tunafilisika, we cannot fuel our vehicles, we cannot afford electricity. I have a message to the middle class sitting around here, sending their kids to private schools, and I am a culprit because the education system has collapsed. We keep looking for our private solutions to public problems. We look for our private solutions to insulate and protect ourselves from the realities on the ground that one day we will wake up and there is no Kenya. And I am urging and encouraging the middle class. You see, they say, Jisome, if you say you've gone to school and you've read, take the time and read this amendment bill. And trust me, we took a few days in retreat a couple of weeks ago. A few of us, about 10 of us, Haki, it was like being back in school. We had to study word for word, amendment against which article, do a comparative analysis. This is not an easy process. It is deliberately made dense and complicated so that you don't know what's going on. But this middle class that sits there aloof and pretending everything is okay in their lives, tell them to take the time as they sit in their backyard sipping whatever, and tell them, read this document and find out that
Message
this has
is home.
nothing for you, and it has nothing for your children, and it has nothing for your great-grandchildren, unless you're planning to emigrate, unless you're planning to take yourself to another country. We must all rise up collectively and protect and defend the Constitution of Kenya, because that is where our freedom and liberty and protection lies as the people of Kenya.
Thank you very much. The message is home. Jerotich Seii, active citizen, and Boniface Mwangi, politician, activist, and award-winning photojournalist. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And time for us to take a break on KTN Home. We'll be back shortly.
Katiba, Linda Katiba, Linda Katiba.
Thank you.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
All right, it's now 2.5 minutes to the top of the hour. So in the next hour, we'll have a conversation with the Wasingish woman rep, and this is Gladys Boss Shollei, talking about what is contained in this particular report in the BBI Constitution Amendment Bill. So just listening to the two guests that we've just had in the studio, very vocal against the attempt to amend the Constitution on principle. Principle here being that we have a Constitution that has absolutely nothing wrong, that we should push for the full and proper implementation of this Constitution. What do you make of that, CT? Do they have an argument?
I think the best thing that has happened with the BBI is the debate it has created. And because it now forces us to actually ask ourselves, these things that you're talking about, what are they exactly? And what do they say? What does our current constitution say? And what is it that actually requires changing? And more fundamentally, these changes, if they were to be brought into place, what actual benefit will they actually be for the citizen? These are questions, because at the end of the day, there must be some benefits. It's not just change for the sake of change. But even more significantly than the other significantly that I had mentioned
That
before,
was more.
before the significant one. You see, there are no easy solutions to these problems. And if it's a political process that has begun by politicians, this is a question I want to ask. What on earth do you expect? We are not electing church leaders here, okay? These are politicians, and we know how they function. Now, if politicians bring into being a process, what do you think is going to happen?
Constitution making by itself is a political process.
Yes. So what do we expect? And having expected this, do we have the ammunition to understand how this one needs to be battled? Because words won't do it.
How we can engage better, how we can understand the contents of especially the bill, and then also see there are those that argue on the principle that the whole thing is flawed from the very beginning.
It's not flawed.
Like Jerotich Seii,
just like there's no perfect constitution.
This was a Trojan horse. From all along, you should have just told us we want to amend the constitution, so let's go around the country collecting views on what parts of the constitution we need to amend. Don't tell us, oh, there's a problem, and now we shall come and see, or some of those problems, the solution lies in amending the constitution, and let's look and, okay, we can tinker with it here and there.
How do those who want to oppose it feel they need to structure their argument and discussions or whatever activity so that the Mwananchi can agree with them?
All right.
Yes.
Keep it right here. The conversation continues in the next hour. It's now 8 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, still continues to build up on Mombasa Road this morning and expected getting towards the CBD. Quite one. All right, an accident this morning also on Mombasa Road. 3 killed as 2 trucks collide head-on on the Voi Mwatete junction at the Nairobi-Mombasa highway, according to police, and that's happened just a few minutes ago. So if you're coming from outside of the city, that's what you're going to face at that point. Affecting traffic then moving upwards on Mombasa Road and then out into the city. It's an unfortunate one today. Coming off of Thika Road as well, getting to the CBD. Remember Forest Road, Star Road today, and still as it has been the last couple of days. Use that as an option to get into the city if you're stuck. If you've not gotten off at that point, then unfortunate, but you're going to have to be stuck in traffic with that. All right, let's look at Langata Road coming out then towards Eldoret Road or then towards Huru Highway. Looking a lot better than going towards Bagathi Way because of the construction that's going on. Coming at the roundabout then of the city mortuary, go towards Valley Road or go then down towards Ngong Road and you should be okay. All right, we'll take a look at what's going on in a short while, but for now, that's what we face. Spice FMKE, that's how you can get in touch on Twitter in case you get stuck somewhere. Or if you find a really great route that nobody knows about, do share here or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only
2 minutes
way.
after 8, thank you very much for choosing The Situation Room this and every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We broadcast on Spice FM, 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa, it's 87.9, in Kisumu, 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret is 96.7, Nyeri, 90.9, 97.7 in Malindi. We are live on KTN Home for 2 hours between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and we are live throughout the 4 hours on Spice FM KE, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and our website www.spicefm.co.ke. As we begin the hour, we always do this. City Muga. What is today's proverb?
Don't stand in a place of danger expecting miracles.
Don't stand in a place of danger.
You know, this space word
Expecting
has
miracles.
existed for the longest time, but it's woven its way into modern language where everything, like we're now in a talk show space. Okay, we're having
In a
a discussion
happy space.
about a political space. No, place, not space.
No.
Okay. Don't stand in a dangerous place expecting miracles. We're having a BBI conversation this morning. Shortly, we'll be speaking with Wasingishu woman representative Gladys Boss Shollei, who has her own views on the BBI amendment. So initially, there's what that she had actually even recorded a video and released a video talking about what she has seen in the BBI report and the initial draft amendment bill. And now, what has been published as a draft amendment bill, she has a version 2 of the same review of the same. But let's look at the comments of what people are saying on social media based from the conversation we had with Boniface Mwangi and Jerotich Seii.
Okay, so quite a lot this morning. Simon Gondo says BBI is a piece of paper. In healthcare, it has no health service commission. Total waste of our resources. It's a must fail, according to Blessington. And Abu Jamal Dennis says Jerotich and Boniface did not give their views before the BBI committee, but are opposing the views of those who assumably did. This is a definition of a selfish country. Okay, so BBI is nonsense. I tend to agree with Boniface, according to Julia. Uhuru seems to be driven by something that's bigger than himself, the need for survival after the fact. Mike says, the Linda Katiba movement should concentrate and encourage the implementation of the Constitution 2010 by ensuring all the transition clauses are mapped out, those that are meant to be passed by Parliament, all the subsequent legislation that is meant to be in place is flagged out, and finally, let us look at all the institutions that need to be put in place to ensure that they are in place and look at their structures and how they are functioning. Victor says, quite informative, but I'm just wondering, is there anything meaningful that can be said other than power belongs to the people? Sammy Brown says, I'm tuned in. BBI is for us Wananchi. Then why don't they give us time for even 2 years to heal from corona so that we can have enough time to go through it and understand it? According to Johanna, the signature collection of BBI has no yes and no options. I signed for no in Murang'a County. So the question, is it a conspiracy to hoodwink Kenyans that they are voting for no, but actual facts we're signing for a yes? So many suggestions and thoughts coming in here. I can't support the BBI fraudulent scheme.
He's saying that the signature collection exercise has a yes and no.
No, it does not. The signature collection of BBI has a
no
and
a
yes
yes
option. Sorry, yes. I signed for no in Murang'a County. So the question, is it a conspiracy to hoodwink Kenyans that they are voting for no, but actual facts were signing for a yes referendum?
That would be interesting. It would be actually interesting to verify that particular issue. Why then would you be going to collect signatures?
It should be just a signature as opposed to a yes or no option.
If you're doing a signature, then you're already saying that it's yes for me. I want to append my signature to this so that we can go ahead and amend the Constitution. Shouldn't be a yes or no at this particular point.
It shouldn't be.
Unless he got somebody hoodwinked him.
Don't I understand the process well? I thought there's a process and it begins with signature collection before it can move, before it moves on to the next phase where it goes to the county assemblies, then before it moves on to the... If you remember, in this discussion, the thing I find interesting is we don't seem to discuss the county assemblies adequately, as though they're simply a rubber stamp that we need not worry about. We don't seem to discuss Parliament and their role. The focus seems to be the president and now his co-conspirator in this matter, the Honorable Raila Odinga. So are we saying that all these processes are moribund? Are we saying that they are dead and buried and that they don't exist and they have no consequence? What are we saying exactly?
Well, you have a section of people who are saying just that. Listen to what Kennedy says. We are all activists in one way or another, however. I strongly believe, beyond doubting my shadows, that the BBI document may not be 100% pure to the dictates of our feelings and take, but it's a good thing to catapult us to another level.
So it's a movement, it's a step.
Yes.
Those are actually even the time when we speak here to people and they call in and we ask them, would you vote? Would you append your signature to this? Would you vote yes to a constitutional amendment? The people who are saying yes are saying it on various grounds. Many are saying yes because I want peace. Yes, because I completely support the idea of a handshake. I completely support the idea of peace and bringing the two leaders together and bringing the two sides together. And for that reason, whatever it contains, I'm going to vote yes. I'm voting yes for peace. Now, there are those who are voting yes for peace, and then do they really completely understand that whatever is contained in the Constitution may not necessarily be the one that brings the peace to them?
No.
Or is it the fact that, okay, because of what I have seen, I trust the process, because of what I have seen, because I've seen the two gentlemen sitting together and agreeing to shake hands, because I've seen the last 2 years of the two gentlemen working together, the two main political parties in the country working together, because of the progress that we've seen as a country. Because of that, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying, yes, whatever is contained, whatever good is contained in this document, I want to say yes to it. It's a step, however minimal a step it's going to be. It's a step. It's moving us forward.
Yeah, but then I hear you saying then, by virtue of that people are saying yes or no to so many different things. There is no clear-cut, demarcation as per what you're saying yes to. You're saying yes to peace? Are you saying yes to shared government? Are you saying in its entirety, you're saying yes?
Are you saying yes to the constitutional amendment?
So there are so many thoughts that people have and the reasons as to why they're saying yes or no. It's not just one thing that's set or cast in stone. And I think now, unfortunately, it's a bit of a dangerous place to be in, because then the results of such that you have people then who would be disenfranchised because they say, actually, this is what we are getting. This is not actually what I agreed to, or this is actually not what I said no to. And does it then come from an understanding of what this process is actually meant to fulfill? And I think that we also deal with a problem, because from the very beginning, when people were being engaged, when Kenyans are being engaged, do they actually realize this is what it's for? This is what it means. When you say yes, when you say no, this is essentially what you're inviting. And I think there is a problem, because a lot of people don't. Some people see their leader standing there and that's all they need. They will say yes.
Those that speak about the BBI right now, they're not talking about the contents. Huh? They're talking about it's reggae. We are
not
all
the
black.
contents.
It's reggae. I mean, it's about time. We need to change. We have listened to views, and views are contained here. So we are just going to vote and say yes to the views. We are saying yes to the BBI process. We are saying yes to the handshake. We are saying yes to all these things, but not really interrogating what exactly are these constitutional amendments. And I saw, for example, Professor P.L.O. Lumumba the other day was saying, I wish we'd actually break it down and go into article per article and say, this particular amendment, do I agree with it or do I not? Because then there may be some things that you could agree with in the Constitutional Amendment Bill, and there are other things that you may not agree with. So what is it that we're going to do? Is it looking at the baby and the bathwater and looking at the bathwater and seeing that there's a baby inside and let's not pour it? Or just looking at everything and seeing it's all poisoned? Throw it down the river.
You would have to change the nature of a referendum if that were to happen. Because a referendum, as an erstwhile colleague put it, is a very blunt instrument. You're asking all these complicated things and you're asking someone to distill it to yes and no.
Yes or no.
See? Now, people like P.L.O. Lumumba are the individuals in this country who have the understanding of the law that the vast majority of us do not. Indeed, let them distill it. Let them break it down so that when there's an argument about it, it is at a forum and at a level that is easy to digest and say, okay, this is what this means, this is what it'll imply now, tomorrow, the day after. But so long as it's this massive document and there's all the discussion we're hearing about it, believe me, a lot will be lost even in the discussion. But the fact that we're talking about it, in my mind, is a good thing. And if I look at what, again, I understand to have been the genesis of it, trying to find a practical way so that our political processes are not as contentious as they are. Not that they will never be contentious, they always will be contentious. But they are not as toxic as they actually are. That is their solution. Now, if someone thinks the solution is not adequate, better solution to the problems we have, what is it? The BBI, the two individuals have presented theirs. What alternatives are there? Because clearly, our elections have issues. And they have issues that could spill over into something we don't particularly want. Fine. The BBI has faults. my friend, it is crafted by human beings who have flaws. What do you expect? Now, having said that, which is a better one, which is less in terms of flaws? Which one?
All right.
And what is it?
So how many people went to the BPI task force and said the solution to this problem is by expanding the number of seats at the national level? Then we can say that then if you look at the views of the majority are what led us to have this proposal.
Making this.
The views of the minority also appear to be sending us to this particular direction. Maybe they were not using the same language as those who came in and they were elite and they were experts and they understand the issues of governance would be. But this is what the people said. That if we have everybody then feeling represented at the top, if we have the major political parties that participate in the national election feeling that they have a position, that they are represented at the top, we are not going to have an issue.
In the absence of something like that, then the assumption is that it was this particular group of people who crafted something around what the expectation at the people in the political class would want. Without the invitation or the contribution of the people. Because if they truly did go around the country and heard from the people that said, actually, you know what? In order to stem this problem that we've been seeing over time, the best thing is to have an inclusive government at the top. Have more people then who would share power. That's how we are seeing this problem that we have would be solved. In the absence of that, what you have is the assumption that it is a few people who made the decision. Unfortunately.
The people who support the person who then becomes the prime minister will still be feeling aggrieved. They'll be feeling, we were not participating in an election so that our person becomes a prime minister who can be fired by the president.
We wanted a president.
We were participating in this so that the person becomes a president. Why can this guy concede defeat instead of us conceding defeat so that he becomes the prime minister, we become the president? Are we guaranteeing that we are not going to have that kind of conversation?
Nope.
Or that kind of tension?
Nope.
So what is this that we are seeking to solve with the BBI, and have we actually arrived at a solution? Now, and that could be an argument that we can have, going forth. But should we not have that discussion and saying, this is what the proposal is? Do we agree? Do we understand it? Can we, like you said, distill it? Can we break it down? Can we look at the pros and cons and then go to a referendum with full understanding that this is what it means? So when people say no, they're saying no after they have completely had time to interrogate and understand it. When people say yes, they have time to interrogate and understand it. Right now, as I see it, there are those who are saying yes. They're saying yes to the entire principle of a handshake. Those who are saying no to also, many of them are saying no to the entire principle of a handshake. They're saying no to the whole process. This whole thing was a charade. It was meant to hoodwink us. It was just meant to create positions at the top. And look what we have. We have 5 new positions at the top. Prime Minister, 2 deputies. We have MPs becoming ministers. We have 600 members of parliament. We have. And what is it that's coming to mind?
Eric,
as a person?
Can we go back to a basic question, all right? Let's start with the Constitution. Huh? Touted, one of the best on the planet, wonderful, excellent. Okay, good, wonderful. How has it helped? Why don't we look at why this constitution has not been implemented? And when we do, the BBI will spring up because some people figured, why it hasn't been implemented, so let's bring in BBI so that it can be implemented. And then we're being told, no, wait. These guys, that's not their intention. They actually want to change the constitution. And I'm thinking, right, politicians are at it yet again, okay? Right now, this isn't a Kenyan problem if you think of it. It's a human problem. The country on this planet that has been known to have the strongest of systems and traditions that when it comes to an election, people understand, has shown us that is not always the case. You know why? Depends on the individual who's at the top. We have a situation in America where it is taking the Supreme Court of the various counties to tell them, sorry, you're not moving forward with this one. As far as we're concerned, nothing wrong. Latest, Pennsylvania. Meaning, the argument that there was fraud, the courts are saying, no such thing. Due process was followed. But has it stopped the president from pushing his agenda? The answer is no. Politicians do that all the time. Now, do we have a situation in this country where our processes, we thought we had it in parliament and we're saying parliament captive. We thought we have with the courts. Are the courts really captive? What is it then that we have to ask ourselves about us, that even with the safeguards that we have in place that are supposed to protect us against maybe a rogue government or a rogue president, that we don't even apply it? So if we can't apply it,
Is it can't, City? I'm going to stop you there because is it that he can't apply it or just
all
just
evidence
will not?
all evidence shows we can't. If you're not doing it, you can't. I mean, what other conclusion can you come to?
Can implies ability.
No, can't.
Right? Will is just that, your will. A choice to actually make this done.
Can't because I will not.
Can't. We
Can't. You choose to. You choose not to.
Yes.
Not because you're unable to do it, or that you don't, or you have an inability to get it done.
You've heard my view on this one here. No. This one is
you're not physically or mentally disabled. You're not. You don't lack an ability to get it done.
Actually,
you just choose not to. Over and over again, you choose not to.
You don't have to have faulty faculties.
It's just an example. It's an example.
Yes.
But you're saying that there are things that have tied me, weighed me down.
Yes.
That's why I've not been able to get this done. But I don't think so.
Actually,
if you actually want it, and looking at the people who have the responsibility of bringing the Constitution to life by the laws that we see legislated in the country, because that's what it does. It's the laws that bring the Constitution to life. The things that you then practice on a daily basis when you're sitting on the floor of the House of Parliament, the things that you should actually do. Are there things that you should actually get done in order to see this Constitution brought to life?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Do you do them? No. Why?
Are there things that you could do but you cannot do because of the prevailing circumstances? Yes, as well.
No.
They could argue the same way. They could argue the same way and say, there are parts of this Constitution that we'd really like to implement, but then we are unable to implement because of one or two things.
So an initiative that would be brought in, how
do.
is that going to change this then ability to get it done? What is it? Is it now going to change? Is a new initiative going to change your ability to get it done?
You have sharpened the pencils. Now it can...
Political perspectives are what the BBI is actually saying it hopes to change. Political perspectives. And the political perspectives should ease the tension, not eliminate.
So long as a perspective belongs to an individual, a human being, and a human being who then has the right to choice. So long as a perspective belongs to a human being, a document is not going to be able to change that, unfortunately.
Actually, it can. The document is necessary because you need a reference point.
Which we have said that they did not follow before with the old constitution.
Yes.
What's going to make the difference between that and this new one that was going to now force them to follow it?
It is a resounding yes, but okay, since we are muddying the waters, allow me to throw in some more mud and some more muddied waters. There is a surrendered delegation which a representative system like this one of ours offers. But this one of ours is gone beyond surrendering because it appears that we've abrogated even our own positions as citizens who have a right to certain things, and not only surrendered, but we've ultimately surrendered it. Because when you say that you have people who are supposed to represent you and they don't represent you, and then you do nothing about it, then what are you saying?
But you don't do nothing about it, CT. You do something about it. You bring them back in the next term.
No,
you don't sit and do nothing. You even vote. You bring them back.
Actually, you're right.
You vote them out. You vote them out. You complain about them. You raise issues about them.
And then you vote them back in.
Let's bring in our guest for this hour, and this is the woman rep Gladys Boss Shollei. Took to social media over the weekend and gave her views on now the BBI, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, as has been published now. Produced two videos. Initially had produced two videos where she was poking holes into what has been proposed for constitutional amendments. Now she's coming in and saying, all right, so we have some issues. BBI Amendment Part 1. The latest BBI Amendment Bill revealed that there have been substantial changes from the one that was launched at the Bomas of Kenya. A lot of proposals raised by the DP have been incorporated, and that's very welcome. She also goes ahead to say that the BBI proponents have accepted to bring back women to the National Assembly through nomination. With this in mind, let's assume 360 men are elected to the National Assembly. That will mean we'll have to nominate 180 women, bringing the total to 540 plus women. So women have come back to the National Assembly and all. But let's hear from the horse's mouth. And Gladys Boss Shollei joins us this morning. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us in the Situation Room. Before we take a break, let's just take the first 2 minutes, first of all, to get your perspective now on this Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 as has been published. Are you for it? Are you against it?
I'm against it.
All right. So let's start.
Unless they make the changes that we are demanding.
Okay. So let's first of all talk about the changes that you're saying. There are some changes that you demanded that have been incorporated. What was the process of getting your changes incorporated in this, and who amended this?
One of the challenges we have is that we realize that despite the fact that they tried to say that the BBI process was a well thought out process, a process that was consultative and that the views of Kenyans were incorporated in a logical and organized manner, we now realize that they can undertake last-minute changes. Like as you said, the changes that were incorporated based on the issues that were raised by the Deputy President and government of Kenya, they've made last-minute changes. So it tells you it's a moving target. It's an ad hoc document that can be changed anytime, especially considering that they told us that the task force term had expired, they were funked as official, they had finished their work, and then suddenly amendments were made. Who made the amendments? On whose behest? Who approved the amendments? Did they go back to the Wananchi? But that tells me that and proves to us that they can continue making the amendments and building the consensus that we've been demanding.
So it's possible for a change to be made. It's possible to take in the views that have been coming up over the last, few weeks and days and still even up till now. It's possible to take them in. So are you saying essentially that there then is a desire to shut out certain views and have this thing go on as it is?
Yes, I know that we had yesterday that Raila Odinga said that there's no more changes, the door is closed. But that is not his place to say. That is something that the citizens should say. But also, and that's why I said it's very bad when you start an illegal process in the first place. Because if you remember, the BBI process is a two-person initiative. It is not a people's initiative. It was based on a handshake by two persons who developed a 9-point agenda without consulting Kenyans. So it's actually not a popular initiative. It's a project of two persons who have now used government resources to hire consultants, set up task forces, steering committees, and technical experts, and then decided to develop a constitutional amendment. And what they have done is every time people have complained, they have made changes. That's why they had BBI 1, and then they realized there was an uproar from the public. They then went back and went to the BBI 2 process. And then when there was an uproar about certain issues, they then tried to correct it. So what they want is they're determined to ensure that this goes to a referendum and passes for them to achieve the executive seat that they want and the extra MPs that they want. But there is nothing there for the Wananchi whatsoever.
Let's take a break at this point. I want us to take a break at this point, and thank you very much for joining us, Mheshimiwa Gladys Boss Shollei, with us on the line, talking about this. When we come back, let's also look at, so those in the Tanga, now you appear to be going lukewarm. First of all, you were very, very strong. Now you appear to be going, let's discuss that when we come out of the break. What's the position of Tanga on BBI? 26 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We want to take a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shartleaf and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shartleaf and True Black and the Standard Group.
Instagram and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique, the official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
All right, partly sunny in Nairobi at 15. We'll go to high to 25 today. The high will be 23 in Nakuru. It's mostly sunny at the moment at 17, coming down then to lows of 15. Mostly sunny in Nyeri at 16, going to highs of 25 and lows of 13. And temperatures dropping in Eldoret as well at 10 degrees this morning. A good high of 23, however. And partly sunny conditions throughout the day. Light rain in Kisumu still coming down at 22, highs of 26 and lows of 19. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 19, going to highs of 26 and lows of 13 today. Mostly sunny conditions now in Mombasa at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Where in Malindi, it's mostly cloudy at 20, going to highs of 24 and lows of 16. Kampala continues to be cloudy at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 16, where light rain continues to come down in Dar es Salaam at 25, then going to highs of 30. It's still raining in Johannesburg at 16 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 15, where partly cloudy conditions rule Lagos skies at 26, highs of 32 and lows of 25. And finally, for now, mostly cloudy conditions in Kinshasa at 24, highs of 32 and lows of 22.
Spice up your life.
Yes, there was an accident trying to get into Nairobi County coming from Voi. There's a bad one on the road today, unfortunately, a fatal one. And that's affecting that traffic coming down this way. So, asking to watch out as you're headed out or coming in. That is what lies ahead. Mombasa Road then, we're still seeing a holdup of traffic then from the SGR through to Cabanas past the airport. That one's still slow, but it's moving anyway. And then going on to... let's see, coming out of Thika Road this morning as well, going into the CBD, that's slow. We'll see Forest Road again giving up those good options for you to come through. All right, it's not looking too terrible this Monday morning. To have a look at it later and see how that pans out. Spice FM KE, that's how to reach us on Twitter or text on 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.8.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting each and every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM and then 7 to 9 on KTN Home. Also on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We have CT Muga Nduoko, Eric Latif in the studio. And joining us on the line is Wasingishu MP Gladys Boss Shollei, talking about the BBI and the amendments that we've seen in now the bill that has been published, the Constitutional Amendment Bill that has been published, which is different from what was presented at Bomas of Kenya, which is different from the ideas that had been presented initially at Bomas of Kenya with the first BBI report.
You know, the thing that I find particularly interesting with this entire discussion, this one I actually don't understand. I've heard that this entire process is illegal. Mheshimiwa, you are the person who has a legal background and understanding. Explain to me, a simple layman, the illegality of this process, please.
Article 3 of our Constitution states that every Kenyan has an obligation to respect, uphold, and protect this Constitution. It also goes on to say that any attempt to establish a government otherwise other than in compliance with this Constitution is unlawful. So, the manner in which these constitutional amendments were brought in were not in compliance with Article 3(2) of our Constitution, because it didn't go directly to use either a popular initiative or a parliamentary initiative. What happened is it started as a private initiative of two persons. A private initiative by two persons, whether it's the president or leader of opposition, is not a legitimate process envisaged in our Constitution. In fact, it amounts to subversion of our Constitution, and in fact the critical pillars of our Constitution. Remember that public participation is a critical pillar of our Constitution that is provided in our laws, is provided in our constitution and has been confirmed severally by our courts, and therefore is solidly part of our jurisprudence. Therefore, the development of the 9 points without it emanating from the public treason. So it started from the wrong footing, and we tried so hard to explain that no one listened. They then used government resources to sponsor and pay and push these personal initiatives.
Do you get the legal side now?
It was forced down our throats, and therefore it finally came to the stage where, as reasonable citizens, we say, okay, let's engage with it. And remember, until when it was launched in a day or two before it was launched in Burma, none of us had seen the final copy. We used to be told, mostly by people from ODM and TLLK, that we are going to amend the constitution. We are going to have a referendum. And I said, you're going to have a referendum based on what? Can I see exactly which amendments, and are these those amendments that require a referendum?
So they basically what she's saying is that the whole conversation about this was we were talking about a referendum even before we have seen the contents of this referendum or these amendments that are being proposed in the referendum. You see, these are matters that had not gone through the whole process.
True, but
there's a question here,
yes.
and we're just sorting out the line with the MP, and then we have this conversation continue. When she says that the 9-point agenda was developed by the president and his co-principal Raila and not by the people themselves, did that block the people from participating or from adding one or two of those of the agenda? Did anybody feel that this is not part of really of the agenda that we should be having? I mean, that's a question that you could ask.
Look, the example that I have of this is the Nakuru Court's deliberations and what he brought forth.
Yep.
Okay? And the process that they followed. That's my understanding of implementation of what the law is.
Yep.
But the reason why I raised the question is that my interaction with issues of the law has always been there is more than one perspective on the same law. Same thing. You read it, it's written, and it seems to mean this.
The interpretation of it.
And
you can
somebody else comes and uses the
same
argument.
Same. And you'll find a vigorous discussion until you're left puzzling. Okay, so...
Like this particular one, let's actually flip this coin straight up at you, Mheshimiwa. So you're saying that this 9-point agenda was first initiated by the president and Raila Odinga. Let's look at Ekuru Court's Punguza Mizigo. Did it not start from the party? Did it not start from Ekuru Court's party coming to the people then and saying, we want to collect the signatures so that these are the things that we can discuss? It has to start from somebody initiating.
Usually, with the government, you can use a parliamentary initiative because you have the majority of members in parliament. It is not normal that a government uses a popular initiative and uses government resources to almost force the popular initiative by asking chiefs and county commissioners to be involved in collecting signatures.
Is it illegal?
When you say a popular initiative, it means it's driven by an ordinary Mwananchi. Ekuru Court collected 1 million signatures without using government resources, with just going on his own with Kenyans who are thought exactly like him. But I think that said and done, we have got to the point where they finally gave us. So it was predetermined that we were going to have a referendum. And I think what they were doing is they needed a referendum in order to sort of use it as a launching pad for Raila Odinga's 2022 bid. It was not necessarily about Wananchi. They also had a very narrow view of deciding that they are going to create certain positions. Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, several ministers, some MPs will become ministers, so that they can persuade certain political leadership to join them in the hope that they'll get the position of Deputy Prime Minister. And if those persons were coming from large voting blocks, then they would have a standard chance of moving their people to vote in favor of the referendum. So the referendum that was being mooted was not about wananchi. It was about wanasiasa. It was about creating positions for certain people and using that to persuade the wananchi. And what they did is then so put in some other goodies in the constitutional amendment so that wananchi can be persuaded that there's something good for them. And a good example that I will give you is a mixture of a schedule of additional constituencies to 28 out of 47 counties. So Kiambu gets 6, Makueni gets 1, Nairobi gets 12, Meru gets 2, Kisii gets 0, Tharaka-Nithi gets 0, Uasin Gishu gets 3. All that was to change our discussion because, wananchi will begin to say, oh, if we get more constituencies, we'll get more CDF. But that is not even true. First of all, the thing that must be said clearly to Kenyans is that there is no chance anywhere in our laws that a BBI task force or steering committee has the power of delimiting, reviewing, and naming new constituencies under our law. It is an illegality ab initio.
But I thought the BBI was a proposal, Mheshimiwa.
Sorry?
I thought the BBI was a proposal.
What do you mean BBI is a proposal?
I mean, it doesn't...
Is it possible for a constitution amendment to delimit the constituencies?
No. What they would do is they would then recommend that the Electoral Commission should undertake the review and naming of boundaries and constituencies as envisaged in Article 89.
Right.
Article 89 clearly says the mandate to review the names and boundaries of constituencies at intervals of between 8 and 12 years and not less than 12 months to the election is the preserve of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
All right. And
there
here, what CT is
that
asking...
the task force can do it.
It's okay. What CT is asking, so if we went to a referendum and we voted yes to this amendment bill, which says let's increase our constituencies from 290 to the new number, there's a proposal on the side that will come and write and will be presented to the IEBC and says the new constituencies, this is the political agreement of where the new constituencies would come in. Now, create the boundaries for how those, for example, how shall you carve out the 17 constituencies in Nairobi to add an extra 12? That is a job the IEBC is going to do.
How does it work, Mheshimiwa?
No, the way it works, and I think you should read Article 89, because Article 89 states even the mathematical formula of how you arrive at 3 constituencies for Uasin Gishu, 12 for Nairobi. Because it says the boundaries shall take into account the number of inhabitants. They should be nearly as possible equal to the population quota, but the number of inhabitants of each constituency may be greater or lesser than the population quota in a manner specified in Clause 6. It goes on to say it takes into account geographical features, urban centers, cultural, economic, and historical ties. It talks about means of communication. It then talks on even that the IEBC, it even makes it very clear that the number of inhabitants of a constituency or ward may be greater or lesser than the population quota by a margin not more than 40% for cities and sparsely populated areas and 30% for other areas. It goes on to say that IEBC shall continue reviewing it until such time and consult interested parties and progressively work towards that ensuring that the inhabitants in each constituency and ward as nearly as possible equal to the population quota. It is so mathematical and very clear the way it is done, and there is much more that goes on to it. So, for people in a boardroom and people with no legal mandate at all to sit and say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years.
I actually understand you, Mheshimiwa. There you've explained it to me now. If indeed it is an illegal process by just 2 individuals, let's say we took this thing to a court of law, what exactly would we charge them with?
No, the court will just throw it out. It will declare it an illegality.
Why then
It is
has
just
this thing
a
not been
fear.
taken to court to be thrown as an illegality then?
You know, we did not see it until the constitutional amendment was gazetted. I started reading the amendment, and then suddenly I saw the schedule as I went on reading. Remember, the BBI report itself does not mention anything about boundaries.
Okay, so BBI
And I have
itself,
spoken to
BBI
people
is
who
not
are-
an illegality.
Sorry?
The argument here is that BBI is not an illegality. The formation of the task force, the formation of a steering committee, there has been no flouting of the law. The only area that you feel that the law has been flouted is with the amendment bill.
No, just remember what I said at the beginning of this conversation. I said it began as a private initiative, which was contrary to Article 3.2 of our Constitution. It is trying to establish a government or change the government in a manner other than in compliance with the Constitution.
So why
If you want to
wasn't
expand the
that ever
executive-
challenged in court?
Sure, because I mean,
2 years down the road.
it seems like a major thing now that we are looking at, because we are saying that essentially 2 individuals sat down and they decided that they wanted to change the operations of government, inherently so. And the only way you can do that is that if you can't have that as a private conversation between 2 people, essentially. And that seems like something major to me. If it's jumping out so clearly at people at this point, why is it not something that has been taken to the institution that can do something about it in the courts?
You see, in law, before you go to court, you have to have a cause of action. That means the wrong has to have matured. So like we said, at the beginning, we were told that BBI was just a document to discuss the 9 points and propose administrative and legislative changes. Just propose. Then it can go to the various, whether it's the parliament to make legislative change or encourage certain policy intervention. That is how they sent it to us. So at that time, even though you felt it was an illegality, because they were dangling the fact of a referendum at some point, we really couldn't, because they had not shown their hand that we are now going to a referendum. It is only now, after they have drafted the constitutional amendment, they have actually drafted the bills themselves. The bills haven't come out of parliament, as should be the case, or the proposals from ministries. It came from the task force. So this task force became the parliament, it became the public, and they decided the manner in which they can change the law and the constitution. So it's only now that the cause of action has matured. We now have a cause of action. They have shown us the boundaries, that they've actually ditched them, like they have the power to do so, which they don't. They have also drafted the constitutional amendments, which were not didn't even go to the public. For example, I don't think any Kenyan, anywhere where BBI went to, actually said that they want 640 plus members of parliament. I don't think anyone said that.
Yep.
And if you look at the BBI report, no one said that they wanted to have boundaries review done by BBI. And therefore, and you can see that, and in fact, the reason why they've been making changes last minute is to try and appease us. And I want to make this very clear. I have not endorsed the BBI process or their constitutional amendment at all. In fact, I saw last night that there was something by some media outfit that said Raila wins as Gladys Boss Shollei endorses BBI. That tells you they are desperate. My views are clear. But because I'm also a law-abiding Kenyan, and also I don't want to always be negative, I recognize that they took into account the views of the deputy president that he raised at Bomas. Not all of them, some of them. And there's nothing wrong with me as a Kenyan saying, at least you're hearing our voices.
Can I ask you then, Mheshimiwa, so here you are saying that all of this is based on an illegality and it should actually be thrown out. There should not even be discussion on one side. On the other side now, you're saying that, all right, some of the views that the deputy president presented at Bomas seem to have been taken in. Are you then saying that if today the deputy president came out and said, all right, with what they've presented, it's not so bad, would you then accept this? initiative, these proposals, this BBI?
I don't think. No, I think that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. Remember, this is a political process. We also, it's not something that I make a decision myself. We will consult each other as like-minded Kenyans. We have been keen that even if one feels that there needs to be amendments to the Constitution, then it can't be forced down by a throat by a small section of Kenyans. It has to be something that Kenyans buy into. Constitution-making process is about consultation, building consensus, narrowing down what are the contentious issues and discussing it.
Mheshimiwa, you're a politician, and what you're saying in theory is really true. How often are the Mwananchi actually, how are they actually consulted? At independence, were we asked whether we wanted MPs or whether we wanted ministers? Even when we've had the second revolution, when are the Mwananchi actually ever asked about these things? It is assumed that by electing leaders, the leaders will represent them. And how often do these leaders even go back to the electorate to ask them what they think about the decision making that they make in parliament?
Okay.
I am making the point that sometimes the voice of the people is used to further an argument that perhaps suits a certain perspective that one would have. Now, let me ask what I really want to ask you. If indeed, let's take, for instance, a hypothetical situation where the group you've been associated with, referred to as Tanga Tanga, were the ones who had proposed the BBI, would you oppose it as vigorously as you're opposing it? On a matter of principle, of course.
If the Tanga Tanga team, which I am a member of, had decided to propose this amendment, believe me, we would have done them in compliance with the Constitution. It would have gone to the Wananchi, it would have been foolproof, and it would have built a consensus. And this is possible because if you remember, the 2010 Constitution was the most consultative constitution process in the history of Kenya. That is in the Library of Congress.
Yep.
It's registered as that. If you go to the National Archives here in Kenya, and you go to the Library of Congress in the U.S., you will find the audio recording of the discussions by Wananchi in every location in Kenya. That's almost like half a ward as currently set out. And there was the representatives of women, men, youth, people with disabilities, etc. And they went to each of those places. Then after that, they built caucuses that then came to the bombers of Kenya. And then what they did is they divided what they had as contentious issues, non-contentious issues. And what happened is, in fact, they reached a consensus on the non-contentious issues. And then, actually, what became the referendum campaign point was the contentious issue. So it took over 20 years to do that. So what I'd like you to do is actually go to the National Archives, get those recordings, and also look at the Committee of Experts report. So what the Committee of Experts were doing is looking at what was raised in every location in Kenya. Like the issue of dual citizenship. It was non-contentious. Kenyans said that was an issue. And so it was not a point that was going to be raised.
Yeah.
Then after that, we set up referendum committees to help in the campaign. And I do remember that I was in the Electoral Commission as head of electoral operations and voter registration during that time and voter education. Those were my 3 dockets. And I remember going to Uhuru Kenyatta when he was Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. And I remember telling him, because the government was supporting the Yes campaign, I told him that those people who are in charge of the referendum committees for the No campaign must be supported by government, because if government uses its resources and they are not able to mount a campaign for the other side of Kenyans, then they will not become legitimate. And I remember he told me, we're already spending too much money on the referendum. How can we spend more? I told him, you've already spent a lot of money. And if you don't add more money for the referendum committees, then what will happen? It will become an illegitimate referendum. So since you've already spent money, put in 10 more billion shillings, and that's what he did. And that's when referendum committees led by people like Martha Karua, Bishop Karaoke, and others I can't remember, were actually funded to be able to also
By
tell
state
their no
coffers.
campaign.
As we come to the
Yes,
conclusion
by
of this
state
of this
coffers.
conversation, Mheshimiwa, I want to ask you now, on the back of what you've just said. First of all, the BBI process and the entire attempt at amending the constitution, you say this is an illegal process, and you say that because of that, you currently do not support this move to amend the constitution. While at the same time, you've said that you and those like you in the Tanga movement are willing to listen and you'll have consultations. The leader of your movement, the deputy president, has been using the word consensus for a long time now. Every time the deputy president tweets about this matter, he puts the word consensus in capital letters. So if you got to a point where you felt that your views were accommodated, that your proposed amendments were then found, there's a way in which was a conversation around what you find to be contentious was accommodated, would you then support this illegitimate and illegal process?
Usually in everything you do in life, you've got to have a plan B. Because if you find that they're going to force it down our throats, then we've got to deal with it. At that time, we have to take action. They're also not going to sit back, because if one is determined to push through an illegal process, which has happened in Kenya before the 2010 constitution, that's what used to happen. But Kenyans went on fighting. When you remember, when we were fighting for a multi-party democracy, at some time you've got to say, this is the enemy that we are faced with. How are we going to deal with it so that we achieve what we want to achieve, and for the sake of the cause and those Kenyans that are behind us? So I won't answer your question by saying if they correct it or that. But allow me to say this. If you look at even the proposed amendments at the moment, I'll give you 3 or 2 examples. The amendments to 11A, where they say that the state shall promote sustainable agriculture, and then they decided to say sources of livelihood, including agriculture, pastoralism, and blue economy. When they made the new changes, they added those words, agriculture, pastoralism, and blue economy. What they were trying to do is try and accommodate what we said about the hustler, every hustle matters. But it is not even genuine, because you don't need a constitutional amendment for Mama Mboga to matter, or for us to promote pastoralism. That is an issue that you can deal with by proper fiscal planning and taking into account every economic activity, no matter how small in Kenya. It is a matter that can be done by the National Treasury. You do not need to put it in the Constitution. After all, already 70% of Kenya are small-scale holder farmers, and yet that has been promoted throughout the years. It hasn't been because there's been a constitutional amendment. If you look at the part where they had put in an amendment, 18A, saying that every citizen has a responsibility to serve in the defense of the country, then I think they removed the word defense and said country, because people are wondering, are they making military service compulsory or what? I don't know. It was confusing. But even why put that? By virtue of paying taxes, I have my responsibility of serving in Kenya by paying my taxes. Once I pay my taxes, my country I'm serving my country, and my country should give me whatever services that I'm required to get. When you go to Article 82, so the first 2 I've told you shows that there is no need for a constitutional amendment to put this in place. Those are issues that already exist. At 82.1, where they are saying that the Parliament shall enact legislation to sanction political parties that don't adhere to the 2/3 gender rule. That is very funny, because if Parliament is supposed to enact legislation to support the 2/3 gender rule, already there is a provision like that in the Constitution, which they have blatantly disobeyed. So you want to tell me that the President Uhuru Kenyatta, who has blatantly disregarded the Constitution by not implementing the 2/3 gender rule, whether he's in cabinet, in not appointing the 41 judges,
with his brother, the deputy president.
Sorry?
With his brother, the deputy president is part of the presidency. I want to end this conversation here because we have to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home, and then just give you an opportunity to conclude on this. Our audience on KTN Home has been with us since 7 o'clock, and now up to 3 minutes to 9. We want to say goodbye to them. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home from 7 to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. Good morning and have a good day, KTN. All right, Mheshimiwa, so we got a minute to the top of the hour. Just, I'm going to give you that 1 minute to conclude your point because you're making a very solid point. So you're saying that in this government, which has flouted the implementation of the Constitution, go ahead.
I hear the President Uhuru Kenyatta saying that he censors a constitutional moment. How do you censor a constitutional moment? He has no moral authority. The appointment of 41 judges, this is constitutional and it is obeyed. It is, the law says the president, the Constitution says the president shall appoint the judges. It does not say the deputy president shall appoint. Then, if you look at the dissolution of parliament, the court ordered the dissolution of parliament. It also says the president shall dissolve parliament.
Yep.
The proclamation of dissolution is by the president and not by the deputy president. So, the president, even if he changes the constitution 100 times, is he telling us, I'm sensing a social moment, I need a new constitution, but somebody else, because my term is expiring, can implement because I have failed to implement. You cannot talk about, you must first be faithful to the constitution that exists, so that if you make any changes, we know you will follow that one. But he has failed to do that, and I don't think he should be telling us about following the constitution.
The Constitution at all.
Or does he hope the future president will do it?
Probably so. Mheshimiwa, we want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. Asante sana. We want to have another conversation with you soon, and we'll invite you again.
Yeah, it's a really pity we didn't get to finish much of the things I wanted to say, but I hope I have an opportunity.
Yes, we will.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Asante sana. This is the Situation Room. It's now 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Okay, traffic is flowing very well on Mombasa Road today. From Kitangela all the way to General Motors today is looking very, very good. And that's a good thing. Hope we can keep it up throughout the day at least. All right, coming off of Thika Road, looking a little bit better. Kiambu Road is a mess right now. It looks like it's going to take a while then to join the Thika Superhighway. Thereafter, you will be okay. There was a major accident that took place further up just as you're getting into Nairobi from getting into that area, at least at the junction from Voi, and that was a fatal one this morning. So headed in that direction, please watch out because that's what lies ahead. Into the CBD then from Langata Road, also looking from Gong Road, coming out from Westlands, moving slowly but getting to the point where it should dissipate and get us out without any issues. Right through the day, keep an eye. Let us know if you get stuck somewhere. We can, send out an alarm before. Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room,
2 minutes after
the
9.
only
This
way
is
to
Kenya's
start
biggest
your day.
conversation. C.T. Muga, as we begin this new hour, what is today's proverb again?
Well, do not stand in a place of danger expecting miracles.
Okay.
Essentially, when you stand in a place of danger,
expect danger.
Eric Latif.
Okay. Right there on the railway tracks, and the train is coming.
And you're standing there thinking
and
that.
you're standing there and you're saying,
I'll be okay.
Not even you don't even think of the train
The
stopping.
train will derail before it gets to
Or you're thinking the rail will move.
Or the rail will move.
Okay.
Or I'll be lifted.
Yes.
By the chariots of fire. Okay. So a number of comments here on the show this morning of what we've been discussing this morning. What do you see?
Quite a lot this morning. James Williams says, open your eyes. BBI is a burden to taxpayers and a threat to our weak economy. Some truth to the other things that are being said as well. The BBI was a 3-people idea, not 2. The DP Ruto has not gone publicly to oppose the president's submission that the DP was privy to processes from the start. Tanga ideology is founded on what the DP wants and not real issues, according to Abu. Looking at others, Oworo Teno says, so without the guarantees, why spend 14 billion on a referendum at this point in time to bloat the annual wage bill to 20 billion annually? Let's cut our losses and spend only 14 billion to say no. Gordon says, it seems like the best option is a vote. Abu also says that Shollei is making a turnaround because the DP's concerns have been taken into the revised BBI. The same concerns were first raised by Mudavadi, but no acknowledgement is given for that. It's simply exposing how selfish Kenyan politicians are. Okay, and Tanga crew have wasted 3 years opposing the so-called handshake and BBI instead of starting up a solid process to improve the constitution or even a more legal process. Who is the foolish one in this context?
You know, the BBI conversation, it keeps shifting. So on the one time, we're looking at it from, the process and the legitimacy of the process. Another time, we're looking at it from this referendum. Is it the right time for us to have a referendum conversation? And then it moves from that to, have the views that were not included been included? It just keeps
But there's a
shifting.
constant. The constant is
BBI.
That's the constant, but the subset of the constant is the Mwananchi.
It's for the Mwananchi.
Everything that is mentioned is prefaced with the Mwananchi.
Is Mwananchi.
The Mwananchi this, the Mwananchi that. The
This will
Mwananchi
benefit
this,
the
the
Mwananchi.
Mwananchi this, the Mwananchi that. And yet, let's start with those who oppose it. Is there a concrete plan for how they propose the Mwananchi would benefit? The BBI, apart from saying it will benefit the Mwananchi, how exactly is it supposed to benefit the Mwananchi? Specifically, everything that is spoken of is inferred. But as for something that directly says, this is the direct benefit that will accrue from this, and you will see A, B, C, D change. Apart from the mention that, our elections tend to be a bit divisive, a bit understating, of course. Now, this would help bring irreducible minimums to the conflict or the disagreements that arise. Again, the Mwananchi is mentioned. The Mwananchi is always mentioned.
The beast of burden in this case seems to be the
Yes,
Mwananchi.
and since the Mwananchi is being mentioned, let me also mention the Mwananchi never really benefits from this thing.
No, and neither are the Mwananchi at the beginning of all of this. It's what the Mwananchi want. Not really.
For the Mwananchi to benefit, the Mwananchi has to take
Has to be
initiative.
part of the process, right?
So if Mwananchi takes initiative, for example, to grow their own business, then they will benefit.
Yes.
They stand a chance to benefit. If Mwananchi listens to what we've been discussing with the Google expert Rosemary Mwangi Opio last couple of weeks about how you can get your business online, about how you can take advantage of the tools that are provided by Google, most of them free, then you stand a chance to benefit. Let's bring in Rosemary Mwangi Opio, the SME lead for East Africa in Google. Good morning, Rosemary.
Good morning, Eric. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you.
Morning, Do. Morning, City.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Rosemary.
Rosemary.
We've not seen you for 2 days. Where have you been?
I know. I'm back.
2 whole days.
2 whole days. Good to see you.
Welcome back.
Same here.
So we've been having conversations for a couple of weeks now on how people can take advantage of very many tools and platforms that are provided by Google, getting yourself and your business online. Many of them have done that. Many have registered. Just give us a feedback of what you've seen, you and your partners at Africa 118.
Yeah, we've seen during the short time the calls come in for sure. We've seen a lot of businesses coming online and taking their business profiles. We've seen them getting views. And so we're hopeful that this will be the beginning of a turnaround for them as they pivot themselves digitally now to come online and to hopefully grow. So we are seeing success, and we are going to hopefully highlight one today who can share his story about his success so far.
Okay. And when someone now gets their profile online and you talk to Africa 118, how long do I get this support from your partners?
Yeah, it's available indefinitely. So in the event that you want to have your profile created, it's verified instantly. Within a few hours, it's available on Google and Google Search and Google Maps. If you want to have a Google Ads campaign set up for you, you have your first month at no cost support. And the goal is to try and help build your capacity. At that point, month 2, you're able to do it yourself. So the goal is to really equip the SMEs with the tools they require to do this for themselves. But if they require support, we're available for them Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay. When we were speaking with you off air, you were telling us that you've sampled some of the people who have taken advantage of this, and you'd like us to speak to hear from some of them. Introduce to us the person who you'd like us to talk to today.
Yes, his name is Salim. He's based in Malindi, and you'll hear about his business and what he does. And ultimately, he got to hear about business profiles from this Spice FM show a few weeks ago. Called our partner, got his profile created, and now he's live. He sells 2 lines of products. We'll hear more about what those products are. And then just this past Friday, he had his first Google Ads campaign go live. So we'll get to hear from him about what he has seen so far. But overall, he heard about us from this radio show. He took the initiative, made the phone call, got the profile up and running, and now we can get to hear about his experience now that he's online.
Okay, and he's actually on the line. Good morning, Salim.
Morning.
Good morning.
Salim Khan, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning to you, man. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for inviting me to speak.
And we also thank you very much, and thank you for listening to us and even taking action, Salim.
I'm an avid listener.
Twakushukuru sana ndugu. Now, Salim, tell us about your business, and then you shall tell us your journey through getting your business online, getting a call to Africa 118, and what you've received so far support.
Well, I'm a handmade paper maker, and I also make handmade natural soap and moisturizing creams. I started making paper in the early 90s, registering the business name Cycle Tenor, marrying the 2 languages, English and Swahili, which meant recycle.
So it's called what?
Cycle Tenor. Sorry? Cycle Tenor, yes.
Cycle with a C-Y-C-L-E.
C-L-E, and then Tenor as in Swahili, kurudia.
All right.
Yeah. So, I started first making paper out of just paper, which is quite easy to collect. And then I've sort of ventured into making papers out of, more exotic, exciting papers like baobab bark, market, kitchen, garden waste, corn shark. One of my boats is then making the paper out of the water hyacinth, for which I made some wedding invitation cards for Jeff Koinange, for example. So, that's the kind of paper that I make. Yes, so it's recycling and just making handmade paper and making products out of that paper, notebooks, lampshades, all manner of things, business cards, invitation cards, gift cards. And then on the side of the soap, this is natural soap. And the idea behind that was really to add value to the very good oils and fats that we get from the region, in the Eastern African region. We have things like cocoa butter, shea butter. And I think, already you've covered a bit about the soap, and you know about the virtues of natural soap.
Yeah.
So these are the 2 main activities that I'm engaged in.
Brilliant. And so, have you been running your business from a fixed premise, like a shop, or had you tried to go online before?
Interesting, you should ask that. The business has been a bit nomadic. I've carried this out wherever I've gone, all the way to Uganda and back, like even here, all the way like Lodwar. So it's shrunk and expanded quite a number of times. And wherever I have had access to maybe setting up a shop, like in Kampala, I had a container that I was operating out of. But then, I've been moving around quite a bit. So this is why I felt like, this was an opportunity that would partnering with Google and knowing at least who I am and moving around, although I have settled now where I am, I have a shop, I have enough space to work out of, so now I'm fixed. I have a shop and this is a showroom where I display all my products.
And where are you?
I'm 30 kilometers outside of Malindi on the way to Tsavo East National Park, on the road, in an old farmhouse. And even my choice of location is a bit deliberate because it allows me to carry out these two activities. They're separate activities, but down the road, I've been able to marry them.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if I make a soap that has baobab oil in it, then I'll wrap it in my baobab handmade paper. And in between the process, even whatever I do to boil up the baobab is beneficial for me as lye to put into the soap. So it's integrated, it's like an ecologically friendly activity. And like I said, I've managed to marry my two activities together. But even on their own as standalone activities, they're quite interesting.
So you decided to go ahead and get on this, right, and have your business profile created, and then even gone on to have your ad campaign done as of last week. What have you seen? What differences have you seen since you got on board? How has business changed?
Well, if you start the journey, from when I called F118, I think Rosemary has already said, the response was immediate. I got the profile set up in no time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have personal challenges, which of course I don't expect, for example, Google to take care of. But this is where now, for example, I'm not very techno savvy, and where I am at the moment, I don't have power. So keeping up with them and also with searching, I know from the time that I got the business profile online, from there you see searches, views, and activity. You can see those numbers going up. But, I still have to catch up with actually what's been happening between when the ad campaign was launched and today.
Mm-hmm.
Just switched on. I'm not even talking to you on the smartphone. So when I do get online, I'll know. Yeah. In short, I'm waiting to be updated as well. But already, from my point of view and from what I do,
mm-hmm.
even just what I saw from the time that the profile went online, for me it's a pleasure just to be able to share even just photographs, just to let people know that I'm still there and this is what I'm doing. And because you see, even the products, even before this, from the time that I started doing what I do, I felt my products lent themselves to e-commerce. So this is a wonderful opportunity. So already the reaction, the early ones are very encouraging.
If I may ask, let me premise this by saying I think what you're doing is wonderful, and that your products are specialty products, so to speak. Now, anecdotally speaking, when you actually decided to partner with Google, have you received more calls? And even if you didn't, what has your client base been? Do you have 300 clients? Do you have 10,000 clients? And has the number increased? At least this is something that you could know.
Well, from the time that I've partnered with Google, it's just been a few days really. And from the time that the campaign has gone on, I haven't really had any, conversions, or if I may use that term. But, I am hopeful because we've just started this campaign. There's not teething problems, but even just getting, the details right has been a process. And then there's a weekend in between. Today's Monday. So I think after perhaps, and they have a team. From the time that I called Africa 118, they did their part. Now I'm dealing with a marketing person. And it's just Monday. Let's see, because I'm waiting to hear. Any activity from there.
So I've put the cart before the horse. Maybe we should ask you this question maybe in 2 months' time, say in January, say.
Well, yes, because I think it takes time. Although, even me, my first impression is Google. The minute you press that button, the whole world knows who I am and what I'm doing. But, even from the way I understand, It's a bit more targeted. It will take a little bit of time. You know, for instance, even for me, I feel like I've posted more photographs and images than are actually appearing. But then, you know, you get to hear that it does take time. You have to be a bit patient. But I think, like you said, once it kicks in, I'm sure there'll be a good response.
And I'm sure once you actually run that campaign, the advertising campaign for a month, you are definitely going to see some. I've Googled you, and I've just gone to Google and typed cycle tenor, which is cycle like a bicycle or motorcycle, cycle tenor. And I've seen cycle tenor enterprises. It shows me here that you are a recycling center in Kakoneni. It even links me to the map. It tells me you're in Sosoni, Kakoneni, Malindi. So there's a place called Sosoni.
Well, you didn't know, Eric,
and
now you do.
Which is 30 kilometers from Malindi on your way to the Savo.
Yes, and incidentally, even going towards the Malindi Solar Park. So, you know, like for me, before COVID hit, I thought I was positioning myself in quite a strategic place. See, it's a kind of product that, you know, it's a bit upmarket. But at the same time, when it comes to the soap, you know, within East Africa, I could get you my soap anyway. That's how things have become nowadays. Yeah.
And I've seen that you've also been able to even update your photos. So there are some very beautiful photos of that. Is this your shop?
That's the front of the shop.
That's the front of the shop. Beautiful. I mean, it's got some very good display. And then I'm also looking and seeing that you make lampshades.
Yes.
And then these handbags.
Well, yes.
So the soaps.
And you see some soaps. Yeah.
Soaps there.
Those are my main activities.
All right. And then the cards that you were talking about earlier, I presume that's what I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
Nicely done cards as well. And so you started your advertising campaign over the weekend.
On Friday.
On Friday,
yeah.
So how is that advertising campaign? How did you go about setting up the campaign? Did you target it to only people in Kenya, only people in Malindi? How did you decide who to target in that campaign?
You know, of course, I first sent in like a list, a request for markets outside of Kenya. And I think there's a reason for that. But then, of course, listening to their advice, and, you know, these things you do have to spend for. So in order to, like, have, in a sense, a sustained campaign to start with, we targeted just the main towns in Kenya.
Okay.
You know, maybe even for, like, logistics purposes. But, you know, if I can just mix in a bit of what I'm hoping the journey will be with Google is, you know, if in layman's terms, I can say, like, you know, what they're doing is they're giving us platforms and tools. You know, for me now, those platforms are like the PPE, everything, so that we can equip ourselves and then the tools to slash our way to get onto these highways that they have built. And in these highways, you have many lanes, pedestrian, mkokoteni, fast lane, but at least they hold your hand and they're supposed to get us there. Then also with that training, then you decide which lane you want to be. If you want to be pedestrian, you stay there. But like, you know, now with this ad thing, and this is how I understand it, something that you pay for. So with this ad thing, perhaps what they're doing is they're putting me in the fast lane for a certain time. You understand?
Yep.
But also the way they've zeroed in, they've seen what my terrain is. And that's why they're helping me out. I don't know if I've sort of answered what your question was. If I haven't, please repeat your question.
I think you've answered it pretty well. Rosemary, you sound like you have a very good convert here. Somebody who believes in wanting to try. You know, this is the spirit of an entrepreneur. You can basically just listen to an entrepreneur and can tell this is an entrepreneur. They can see the opportunity and they can see how they can grow, and they want to dip their feet in it and experience it.
Yeah, and Salim is not unique because he said he's not technical savvy. He struggles, you know, but he says, you know what, I know I don't have the capacity, but I want to learn. So, you know, he says, Rosemary, can you please just hold my hand, just pull me? He's going to pull me, help me come on and learn this new skill. So he's definitely eager to learn, and he's not savvy, but he wants to learn, and that's where you start. You start from a desire to really want to change and pivot yourself. So with Salim, he's all the way in Malindi. He's not technical savvy, but he got his business profile up. He put the pictures, he put the address, the location, and on Friday he went live with his first ad campaign. Again, just willing and eager to learn. So for me, it's to encourage people like Salim to don't be afraid. Don't, even if you don't understand technology or don't have a smartphone, it's fine. Just get the desire, make that phone call. Let us hold your hand. Let us pivot you upward and help you rise up. That's Salim's story.
Have you dealt with many?
If I may just add just
yes,
one
go ahead,
story.
Salim. Go ahead.
You know, as if I may say, like, you know, and this is something I think Rosemary has alluded to in the past. You know, I haven't been able to hear all your programs because really I have that on a single lamp with a radio. So when the sun doesn't shine, I miss out on a few of your programs. But what she did allude to was that, you know, other than them holding our hands, you know, we are in this sector, in the SME sector, a bit shy of also, like, you know, coming to the attention of certain authorities.
Yep.
And I hope, like, already she has alluded that also these are the partners that will perhaps come and hold the other hand, and maybe the other ones also give a slight push from behind. You understand?
That's true.
Let's say like KRA, there's NEMA, there's Bureau of Standards, you know, people like that. I think already I know they're quite accommodating towards the needs of the SME. But, you know, I think like that is something also they need. I think Google is doing what they can, and we also have done this. But at this stage, I think we are hearing the right noises, but, you know, we need to get in touch with each other.
It's interesting that you raise those issues, actually, Salim, because when you talk about now you're making soap, you're making products that are to be used by people, then there's the issue of quality, there's the issue of the standard of the product that you're using. So have you thought about that, about how you can get support from KEBS, for example, to get a standard mark of quality, or how you can work with KRA then to formalize your business? And what kind of response do you get from those other institutions?
Of course, I have been in touch with, let's say, for example, the KEBS people who have, you know, furnished me with what the criteria, as it were, is, you know, what needs to be done. But then also there's limiting factors, and there's questions that, you know, perhaps I'd like them to be a bit more clear about. If I make this specific, for example, the soap that I make, you know, I'm not like mass producing one type of soap that, you know, I can get certification on.
Yeah.
You know, it's the kind of thing that you dabble in, and like from what I've been made to understand, if I just vary the thing, then, you know, it might cost me about 5,000 shillings to have like one product certified. And, you know, I already have a range of about 50. So, like, you know, maybe clarification on that, how flexible they might be towards things like that, you know, because, you know, otherwise what I do in order to be just under the radar is, you know, you exploit those loopholes of just things like a cottage industry that just sells at craft markets and to friends.
Yeah.
You know, I think we need a little bit more, like I said, maybe holding the other hand and a little bit of a push from behind. I mean, if Galwa can even like come and say, you know, moments like my personal challenges, which Google cannot take care of, I need to sort out, but I still need a push with that senior steamer. In case what power Malindo last is, I was you know, there's these laughable things that really, if I put in place, now it's like Google, I invite them if they want to come and do a video shoot, but, you know, I'm worried, because, you know, like, when you Google and search, you think, hey, this product, this place is high tech, but, you know, calm down, really, if Google can zoom in a bit more, and, like, I know, zoom in on the terrain now, although it is not a mandate, but I'm glad at least now we can start addressing things so that, you know, I can start producing. This, we have to come out of this COVID thing also. And this is like why I look at it as an opportunity. I don't have to be a nomad from Kampala all the way here. Now the world should know where I am. This is what I do. And they know where the market is. And they know how to plot a route for me to that market quickly.
Salim, that's a very encouraging story. And we wish you all the best, Salim Khan, as you run this business. Once again, let me just tell everybody, the business is called Cycle Tenor, one word, Cycle Tenor Enterprises. He is based in Sosoni, Kakoneni, Malindi, Kilifi County.
And I hope maybe in the future I'll be able to send you at least a gift pack so you can like maybe have a competition or something. I'll include some of my products.
All right, yes, that's true. That's very true.
Just plugging for some business. Maybe even do you guys some like business cards, things like that. And if I may just plug in during this time, and Kenyan outfit for whom I also contract produce called Wild Earth Botanics. just to explain a bit about the soap and cosmetics business. I make wonderful creams, but, I have, from the personal challenges, packaging. But I do make nice products. This is networking with others and encourage them to take advantage of what Google has done and is doing.
Sure. Well done.
Thank you for your time.
Asante sana. Rosemary, you have something to give this gentleman. I mean, surely. With everything else. Eh?
It's been a privilege.
Salim has my heart already. Yeah, for sure. We're supporting him with the Google Ads campaign. He got a complimentary voucher from us to have his first ad campaign built, fully funded by Google. And of course, if you have any more hampers remaining, Eric, please, can you just give one to Salim from us?
We will donate one from one of the winners.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Salim, one of the Google hampers comes to you as well. I mean, well done and congratulations. You're doing a good job. And it's a good thing to hear people doing the kind of work that you're doing all the way in Sosoni, Kakoneni.
It's going to be on your lips
today, isn't it? Asante sana. Have a good day, Salim. Rosemary, so
bye, Salim.
That is one business that we've talked to. Who do you want us to talk to tomorrow?
For tomorrow, I think I got a question from CT and from you about the finance bit and how to have SMEs access finance and what are the criteria for eligibility for applying for those loans. So one of our partners will be on air tomorrow to answer those questions about, as an SME, if you're looking for financing, what are the requirements and how to ensure that you are eligible to qualify for those types of loans. So we'll have a partner on the call tomorrow who can answer those questions and guide the businesses on how to go about being eligible for financing.
So people who are thinking of, taking a loan, expansion loan and all that can listen to the show tomorrow and we'll hear how we can take advantage of this.
Absolutely.
Asante sana, Rosemary. Have a good day.
And you too.
Thanks, Rosemary.
Thank you.
Bye.
Join us again tomorrow. 29 minutes after 9. Let's take a break, take a look at the weather and traffic, and then we open up the conversations. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davies and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davies and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot-belly people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice. Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you used to do?
And women are guilty about that.
Is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The weather with Spice FM.
Sunny in Nairobi at 18. We'll go to highs of 25 today and then lows of 17. Mostly sunny in Nakuru at 18. Highs of 23 and lows of 15. It's also sunny in Nyeri at 18. Going to highs of 25. The low will be 13. 11 is the low in Eldoret today. Partly sunny at the moment at 17. Going to highs of 23. It's raining in Kisumu still at 22, going to highs of 26 and lows of 19. Where it's sunny also in Kakamega at 22. The high will be 26 and then lows of 13. Mostly sunny in Mombasa as well today at 27 at the moment, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Sunny conditions also in Malindi through today at 22 currently, going to highs of 24 and lows of 16. The high will be 26 in Kampala today, where it's mostly sunny at 20 and lows of 16. It's also raining in Dar es Salaam at 28. It's going to be a warm day, going to highs of 30 and lows of 26. The high will be 23 in Johannesburg. It's raining now at 17. Lows of 15. Lagos is mostly cloudy now at 26. The high will be 32 and lows of 25. Kinshasa mostly cloudy, intermittent rains throughout the morning. 32 the high and lows of 22. It's warming up slightly in Beijing now at 4 degrees, and then we'll see a low of -6. Also cooling down considerably in Paris. Now at 1 degree, we'll see highs of 7, and 1 will be the low, and cloudy throughout the day. Fair skies in London at 7, highs will be 10 and lows of 5. And now into New York, where it's Monday morning at 10 degrees, going to a high of 16. Clear skies and sunny conditions all through the day.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
So today has not been too terrible of a day as concerns traffic. Trying to get out into the city for everybody who was off for the weekend, not too bad. Coming off Mombasa Road, except for that terrible accident we saw at the junction coming out of Voi. That was the problem. And then apart from that, Mombasa Road behaving very well today. We see then Uhuru Highway now is when it's building up. Then between the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts, then going through towards the CBD and then out towards Westlands. Ngong Road not looking too bad either. Bagadi Way, however, where the construction is going on, it's one lane, so it's going to be slower as you then get out towards the City Mortuary roundabout. Most people have gotten where they were going this morning. If the traffic builds up through the day, let us know. If you're stuck somewhere or if you find a route that nobody knows about and can be used, let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings. 10 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Having a BBI conversation this morning. So we've heard from various quarters. We've heard from two civil society activists, Jerotich Seii and Boniface Mwangi. We have also heard from a member of parliament. This is Gladys Boss Shollei. She is firmly on the Tanga camp of things. And we know that the BBI signature collection drive has started. It's going around the country. The target is to collect at least 4 million signatures. That is 4 times the required number of signatures as per the Constitution for a popular initiative to amend the Constitution. What we've heard this morning, a number of things. One, that the entire BBI process is illegitimate, it's illegal. 2, that what's contained in the BBI is number 1, it's a poisoned chalice. Number 2, what we have is it's a Trojan horse, and therefore what is contained in this BBI is just a move to hoodwink people into thinking that they are voting for something, and yet the gains are going to be realized by a few people who are in senior positions or in authoritative positions. Now, is that a true position on the ground? Is BBI illegitimate, illegal? Let me not use the word illegal, because legality of it and all, that's a legal conversation to have. Let's talk about legitimacy. Is the BBI an illegitimate process? And the contents of now this Constitution Amendment Bill of any benefit to the Mwananchi? Is there any benefit in this? Is there a baby in this karai that has some dirty water?
You know, Jerotich said something that was quite interesting and talked and, focused on the middle class of Kenya. Not the people that you're expecting to run out into the streets and, be pelted by tear gas and all of these wonderful things. The people who are sitting, with their feet up saying, all right, well, let's see where this train takes us. Do you have an understanding of what this is about? Proposals that has been introduced into this country that is essentially going to change the way in which things are done, or at least the way in which the rule of law then is number 1, established, and then number 2, practiced, and then held, right? Essentially going to change how all that works. Do people have an understanding of what is really going on at this point? point, and those are the people I'm talking about, do they have an understanding of what is going on at that point? Number two, is there interest? Even if you want to look at people on different across strata, are people, because this conversation has been bubbling in certain circles, but then if you want to look at what is really bothering Kenyans at this point, is it really this BBI conversation? Is there interest there? And I would say that on two fronts. Number one, there is a certain number of percentage of people who are just not interested in this drama. Right now, what they're concerned about is how to survive. Then there's another group of people who believe, all right, this is interesting that's going on, but they're looking at it from the periphery and saying, okay, well, somebody somewhere is going to sort it out, and then we'll be told tomorrow what's going to happen, right? In terms of interest, understanding, knowledge of what is really, really going on, I think that you'll find that quite a significant percentage of people, number one, don't understand or are not even interested to know what this entire process could culminate in for them as Kenyans. And are not bothered, not interested, don't know, don't understand, haven't bothered to read, haven't bothered to ask. They watch things on television, they hear things on the radio, they see things panning out, and then they say, oh, okay, that's what's going on. All right. And I think those are the people that the target would be for this, that do really know what it means that this conversation is being had. And are you interested to? And you find that the answer would be no for a lot of people.
I would actually add to that list of questions that you ask and ask the question, all right. Without a shadow of a doubt, there is some benefit from the politicians, for the politicians who are proposing everything in and around and about the BBI. However, is there a likelihood, no matter how remote, that it might actually benefit you, the Mwananchi? And if you think what do you think that benefit will? Because every decision that we make, if we're looking for this altruistic situation where political decisions will be made purely to benefit the Mwananchi, not going to happen. No. However, what we perhaps need to ask ourselves is, what is it that needs to be done so that we have not an individual, not a group of individuals, not people who agree, but a system that guarantees certain things for the Mwananchi? In my opinion, that ought to be the conversation, because so that irrespective of who is in power, there are things which will accrue to you as a Mwananchi. But this thing of hoping and wishing that when somebody of goodwill comes into power, we might as well have a monarchy. Because with a monarchy, it is at the behest, it is at the wish, it is at the whim of the monarch. But if you have a situation and a country and a system such as the one we claim to have, then we do need to consider the processes that we need to follow that will guarantee. We already have the beginning, the building blocks, a constitution. Okay, now, how do we make sure that the implementation of this constitution and what is implemented is at the heart of everything that we do?
You know, those kind of fears that you're raising now were raised more than 10 years ago in the drafting of the current constitution. And that's why some of those checks and balances were actually hardwired into the constitution. For example, the issue of Parliament not meeting the gender threshold, it was hardwired in the constitution that any Kenyan voter can petition the courts and the Chief Justice, upon looking and reviewing and seeing that there is no effort that has been made to meet this threshold, can then advise the president to dissolve Parliament. This is in the constitution. That has been followed to the point where the Chief Justice has done what he has done. All right? That is one. In terms of implementation of the constitution by, legislation that comes in to give life to this, that is also hardwired. The Parliament of the 2010 and the other Parliament had actual timelines within which they must enact certain legislation. There are also things that have even been taken to Parliament, to courts, whether this is a progressive realization of the Constitution, whether it should have happened immediately, and these have even been canvassed. So already, those are contained in the Constitution. Now we find ourselves in a position where there are some quarters that feel that it has been difficult to implement the Constitution as it is. There are those that feel that the political class is not really interested in implementing this Constitution, and all of them, it's clear, go to court. Okay, so here we are. We are asking ourselves, let's amend this Constitution so that then we can, get better realization of the gains that would benefit the ordinary Mwananchi. What guarantees do we have? If the guarantees that are there in the Constitution right now are not working for us, and there's nothing that is addressing making stronger guarantees for the realization of those things that will be amended in this Constitution, what are we doing?
Actually, Eric, you've asked the question that needed to be asked. And let me respond from my point of view and the way I understand it. You see, every time we talk about the Constitution, its implementation, and the aspects pertaining to it, we talk about it as though it's meant for somebody else. I don't believe Kenyans have gotten to the point where they even believe this Constitution is supposed to benefit them. No, it's somebody else's. Kuna watu wengine, as we say it in Kiswahili. And the process of internalizing it, it's like they are orphans who wait for someone else who is the real child or the real owner to come in and then bequeath them this small gift. It's getting to the point of even thinking that Kenyans don't even believe they are Kenyans. That all these things that we talk about is actually meant for them. Yes. When they say Kenya, it's like other Kenyans. And you ask, you are part of that other.
How will Mwananchi benefit?
Yes. Other people, not me. Others. So when they benefit and you can relate to those other Mwananchi, then perhaps you feel, oh, I'm benefiting at last. Because if indeed it was understood that this is our Constitution and these rights, they're all mine, and that I have the ability to do all these things, and that everything else that I think is not subservient to these laws, which are the principles of the Constitution, because this is really the bedrock on which I should base my existence in this country, legally. If we believed this, then, my friend, the envelope would be pushed. Because then it means, remember the vigor with which somebody who thinks you're in a position to help give them secure employment bothers you. Shamelessly. Weekends, whenever an opportunity, send people.
At your house.
When I say shamelessly, I mean it. Shame is put aside because there's a bigger issue. You have someone who you think requires employment, and you, the target, is in a position to assist. Now, if we pursued our rights with the same vigor, so that the representation is understood, yes, but whenever there's an issue, 2 or 3 of us go to see our MCA or our MP, sooner or later the message would go home that, these people are a bit serious about this thing. So to stop this bother, why don't I just ensure that I brief them and inform them, but I also tell them what it is that is happening.
But I don't think there's an embracing of that reality, CT.
No.
I don't think that there are people that people have said, you know what, this is actually my right. I have a right. And what does a right mean? That you can go ahead and demand that certain things be done. It is a right unto yourself. Whether individually or collectively as a Kenyan, it is a right unto yourself to be able to have certain things done. But I don't think that we've come to the point whereby you've had a relationship with this reality of what these rights are. Had it been the case, look at a young child, for example, who knows that they're hungry, they should be fed. Now, do you hear them sitting down and saying, okay, maybe I'll sit in this corner and wait for somebody to bring me food?
They'll wake you
No,
up.
they will cry and you will wake up and feed
Until
that
you
child.
attend to that need.
Yes, that need will be attended to. Otherwise, you will bear the full brunt of the noise.
And you will have no peace.
No, they are aware. So that's what I'm saying. It's like Kenyans, it seems that people are not, as I look around the world, people are far removed from this reality that it is actually your right. By the time you put someone in that position, there are certain things that you can go and demand of them. You're not disturbing them. You're actually asking them to expend their duties and do their job. But then, can you imagine if 2 or 3, just like you said, would go look at your ward representative in the name of an MCA, go see your MP, and you're not asking to give me 500 shillings to do something. You're actually saying, you know what, there's certain things that we need done in the area in which you said you were going to actually come in and do. That's why we've put you there to be able to do it. Please, can you just go ahead and do what it is that you're asked to do? It's the same thing. Look, and there's a realization also by people in this political field who also know Kenyans are not going to ask, number one, or also know that Kenyans have not come into reality with their rights. Have not done this real audit of what our rights are and say, these actually are things that we can demand. The leaders know that. So they know they're not going to come and ask tomorrow. So they continue to get away with murder, basically. Do whatever they want.
The concept of Harambee, when it started, it was not something that was spearheaded and led from the front by members of parliament or politicians. It never was. No. They came in as just members of that community. But remember, it is now something which is dependent on the largesse and the whim of the leader. It's like in the absence of the leader, whenever you talk of Harambee, who can we call? Meaning, who can guarantee us that we will get what we want? Instead of saying, look, this is what we've done. Why don't we, as a member of this community, why don't we call this person to join us? No. We didn't just sort of like abrogate our responsibility. and our representation to our leaders. No. We abandoned it completely at the feet of the leaders, meaning we no longer have it. You know, when I hear of this term that has been used in NGO circles, state capture. No, this one, it's Mwananchi capture.
It's Mwananchi capture.
And Mwananchi rights capture.
So who has been captured? I mean, who has captured the Mwananchi?
I'm saying I'm using that term to explain it, but it hasn't. The Mwananchi has decided to be captured because when you allow someone to run roughshod over your issues, it's you who has permitted them. Now, we can psychoanalyze it and say, people have been beaten to a pulp to the point where they can't even think for themselves. Yes and no. Circumstances may actually harass you to the point where you actually stop thinking you're a human being. You may even think you're a plant.
So what's the term here? Submission by Mwananchi.
Is it submission?
No, the term I'm thinking of is total surrender.
Total surrender.
Yes. It's not a good position to be in. You know why? Someone who has totally surrendered doesn't have very much to lose. That is not the sort of person you actually want to be, and that is not the position that anyone in leadership.
You've given up.
Someone who's given up doesn't look at life from a position of hope. When someone looks at life from a position of helplessness, hopelessness, that's an extremely dangerous person. This is the point
because
I'm
when
getting
you do submit, there's that still hope that you're submitting in the hope that something would come back to you. But when you've said, okay, you know what, forget this is not going to happen. Everything, just go ahead and do as you wish.
And then things
they have nothing to lose.
Things cease to matter as they should. What am I saying? I am saying that all is actually not lost, in my view. And if the BBI needs to be looked at for what it actually is, then perhaps we need to not just look at the BBI. Let's look at the individuals who are actually proposing the BBI and ask ourselves, what sort of people are these?
Politicians.
Yes. Apart from being a politician, these individuals,
what's their character?
Yes. What's the track record that these people have? What is it about them? Those who are opposing them, let's get personal and individual about this. All right? What sort of individuals are these?
But then that would be personalizing the issue.
Actually, it is a personal thing because at the end of it, when someone tells you this thing is going to benefit you, it's personalizing it. So if you're telling me something, I need to ask myself, you who's making the promise, what sort of person are you? Can I take your word as sacrosanct? Can I believe you? That's where I'm taking my discussion.
All right. So ask about the person who's proposing it. Ask about the person who's opposing it.
Ask about these politicians individually, because not these politicians, not all of them are the same. There are politicians who, if you spoke to their constituents, will tell you this person really tries to do A, B, C, D. So this is one instance where lumping them and saying these politicians would be wrong.
Okay, so those that have a politician who, has a good track record but is still supporting the BBI, what should they do?
Well, this is your MP, this is somebody who has a track record. Or even if they are opposing it and they have a track record, then you need to ask yourself, in all honesty, if this person whose efforts and whose decisions have clearly been of benefit to I and to us opposes it, they must have a good reason. So you have reason to either query it or to believe, but I would actually go with a query.
I think I see danger in that because you'll narrow it down to that person's belief or that whatever that is driving that person. Let's remember that there are very many people who are proposing or who are supporting this BBI route because of their own political survival.
Yes.
And there are those that are opposing it for the same reason. So you may find somebody who has a very good track record on one side supporting and somebody else who has a very good track record on the other side opposing. Your governor may have a very good track record, he's on one side. Your MP may have a very good track record, he's on the opposite side. So which side do you choose?
You see, why I bring in the personal element is this. When it comes down to the basics, at the end of the day, a politician will look for things which benefit them. That is a constant and a given. But the track record comes in is even as they benefit, I also benefit. That's why I bring it in. Because this person gets a good salary, they drive a big car. These are the tenets of a good life as far as most Mwananchi are concerned. But I'm saying this person's make decisions. This person uses the CDF in a way that I can see benefits me. This person has my interest at heart. So the details of them benefiting, fine. But I also benefit.
But what I'm saying, I'm seeing danger is you're saying let's not interrogate the document, let's interrogate the people.
My friend,
let's not interrogate the gospel. Let's interrogate the preacher.
I'm actually being honest here, and I'm being factual, and I'm being realistic. That document will not be read by the vast majority of the people. It won't be. even the middle class that our friend Jerotich was mentioning, will not read that document.
Sawa, but then they have access to the information about it.
They do.
So instead of listening to the person, why are you opposing it, and why are you proposing it? So that you get what is contained in the document. You're telling me, okay, what do I feel about you? Do I like you? Do I not like you? Do I?
But Eric, they usually give you reasons why they support it or they don't. They already give.
You're not telling me to consider that. You're telling me to consider their character.
I am saying take into consideration the character of the person who's talking to you. You must take it into consideration. You cannot remove it from this, because if everything else fails, what you can go by, this document is just a document. This person whom I know and whom I can relate to, what they say at some point has to matter. Because the truth of the matter is this. You tell me, why do you think teachers have such a serious traction with their students? Because one, they teach you things you didn't know. But secondly, many things that they tell you turn out to be true.
No, Siti, me, this is what I'm seeing you saying. Because Siti amesoma ni sawa.
No, I am saying
no. Or because Bishop so-and-so is against this, then I'm also against it.
That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying not the bishop's position. There are many bishops whose position may be bishop, but as individuals, you cannot rely on even the breath that they take to be oxygen.
But my bishop,
right?
I believe that's why I go to his church. That's why I follow him.
Yes.
Right? So already I'm at that point where I trust my bishop. And you're telling me now, because I trust my bishop, then I should trust that he has my best interest at heart.
No. That's the conclusion you arrived at. I am saying, even as you take into consideration the issues surrounding this, the individual's character must be borne in mind. That's really what I'm saying. This individual and who they are must be borne in mind. Meaning, I must look at the information, but I must also look at the source of that information. That's what I'm saying.
We have about 5 minutes. Let's see some of the comments that are coming in. And 0719-012-600. You can call in and give us your opinion on this. What do you feel about the BBI and the process as it goes on? Is there anything in this BBI that you feel is beneficial that then could be saved? Or is there the entire thing just wrong from principle of it's illegitimate, how it started, how it's been conducted? What do you feel about this? There are very many comments that have come in on social media this morning.
Yeah, quite some. Interesting, real quick. So I can't support the BBI. That's one thing that has come through. The court has ruled that the BBI was illegal. Some of these that we've looked at already. The best option seems to be our vote. Again, so without the guarantees, why spend 14 billion on a referendum at this point in time to bloat the annual wage bill to 20 billion annually? The best thing to do is to vote and say no and save 14 and only spend 14 billion shillings. Okay. And Julia says, well, Boniface said it is a rogue presidency. And that's why he has said we guard it for the next presidency and parliament. Just like that of the US survived for the presidencies following. So.
Abul Jamal says Tanga crew wasted 3 years opposing the so-called handshake and the BBI instead of starting up a solid process to improve the constitution or even a more legal process. Who's a foolish one in this context? So those who are opposing it now. I mean, they've been in the trenches saying this is it, this is the other, and then wondering, so is it Tanga, is it BBI? Who do you trust? Who do you believe?
You see, the thing is this. Let's say, do I trust a political party? That's it's an amorphous, inanimate entity called a party. Okay? What makes me trust a party may be the individual or individuals who I associate with it. And with it, you see, I cannot divorce the reality of what an individual's reputation is. I cannot divorce it. You see, if you listen to the discussion that we had with Jerotich and Boniface Mwangi, they went for the president's jugular. Not as Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, citizen of Kenya, no, but as the president, the person who holds that particular position, and said, this is a person who has shown examples of impunity by disregarding this decision, by doing the other. They pointed it out. Now, these are the things that make up the body of what you call someone's character. If indeed someone who has a track record of doing certain things, there are those who argue that Right Honorable Raila has a history of always opposing election results. Not election results at the county level of the MPs, but of the presidency, okay? that is the view they had because there's evidence to show that he has opposed those views. Now, there are details of why he opposed them. Usually those don't feature in the discussion. What features is this person has done this. This person has refused to appoint the judges. This person has refused to do this. Now, we judge people by those precincts, whether we say so or not, but we do. Now, I am simply taking that argument further and saying, when you have a discussion such as this one of the BBI, and there's an argument about the details of it, details which people will not read, perhaps we have a duty to distill it and say, look, the salient points are these. Consider. How they benefit you is in this way. The points being raised against it are the following. Consider these. So we can break it down into a consumable manner so that anyone listening can say, okay, I've understood the points being raised. If you then want details, we'll say, then please read it.
Yep.
But to assume that a decision is going to be made on an issue as serious as this one is
by somebody else.
Yes,
for
or it's like saying that because of a new constitution, which we all believe to be good, okay, unless we're dealing with a matter in the constitution that concerns me personally, to read the entire constitution.
Why?
Hey, surely. I'll ask, Kone, don't I have other things to do?
There are people whose job is to read the Constitution.
Yes.
So let them read
Others
it.
whose job is to interpret the Constitution.
Yes.
Others we actually pay to do these things.
Yes. And since I am the one who pays, why don't they do it for me so that they can explain to me what it is I mean?
Yeah.
So you see, the character of the person, whether we like it or not, will come in.
Okay. Yes. Coming to the end of the show, let's remember today's proverb and what it means then.
Don't stand in a place of danger expecting miracles. Stand in the middle of a highway, Mombasa Road, middle. Fast-moving traffic is danger. And then you think that you're just going to stand there, the cars are going to avoid you. We'll have that discussion in a hospital. Because you will certainly get hit.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you actually just do get a miracle, then
you will be dead.
Transport direct heaven.
You will have moved from this life into the afterlife.
You could get hit
and survive.
And you miraculously survive.
Good. Best of luck with that one.
Thank you for joining us today. Join us again tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 1st of December. Finally, we are in December, just like that. Tomorrow being the 1st of December, of course, is World AIDS Day. We'll have a conversation around that, World AIDS Day, and what progress has been made in combating HIV/AIDS. City, I'm sure now, this one tomorrow, yeah?
In your element. We'll just see you turning like fish when they throw for oil.
Turn like fish when they
Wait
throw
a
for
moment.
oil.
In your part of the world, people cook live fish.
So,
you see the way fish shakes his body when they throw it in.
See you tomorrow. Have a lovely day, folks. It's now 10 o'clock.